Welcome to Summoning Insight 61. Now, the world's groups have been decimated by the fantastic play of the Koreans, and I dare say Europe has managed to thread the needle to make it for themselves after a massive performance. NA ending up annihilated was as shocking to me as that Kikis flesh bear slip. I do want to highlight, though, the excellent performance of the LMS teams, who shredded the Coup Tigers and even Fnatic. Now, that's obviously not actually Quickshot, that was me. I know if you closed your eyes, you probably thought, oh my God, Riot Quickshot on Summoning Insight, this is my dream. It's my dream as well, mate, and I still believe in that dream. But for now, that dream is still but a dream, much like Europe in an all-European final and a European champion. So we're here on episode 61 of Summoning Insight. The show is sponsored by Alpha Draft, where you can play Worlds. You can play all sorts of stuff. You can play League of Legends, you can play CSGO, you can play Smite, you can play Dota 2. You might even be able to play other games, I'm not sure. Monte, usually me or Monte has a contest on there for tournaments like Worlds, where it's like a big one where usually has like $1,000 first place, $10 entry. They have all scales of tournament you can enter, though. You can enter, what's the cheapest you can enter, Monte? Isn't the one that's like less than even $1 or something? I think there's some very cheap ones.
Sure. Yeah.
But, and also, if you're an absolute baller, you can go as high as like, I think like $1,000 or something for the highest one or something. I think there's one that expensive. I think there's some mad ones where you pay $1,000 and it's like 1v1. That's the one that I always say to Monte.
The 1v1's the mad baller.
One day when we really are out of control with the 6 Skrilla that Alpha Draft gives us, we will just like play those, but not even for the money, because at that point it won't matter money. It'll just be for ego, just to steal $1,000 from each other with the most lucky. Imagine then, Monte, if you have some retarded scenario like we had in that one that we did before, the $10 one, where I won just because I had like an extra losing player. You had a winning player and you lost. Imagine that it'd be $1,000. See, that would have been satisfying right there. So, okay.
We should do that.
It's episode 61. Sadly, timing, me having events.
Speaking of the Riot employee issue, though, so if you would like to see Riot employees, such as casters, that we would love to have on this show, please tweet at LOL Esports and let them know that, so that they could escape from under the iron thumb of Riot to actually do content that you guys would like to enjoy. I think that is the fastest way to be able to get some of the love casters that we would very much enjoy having on this show.
I think what people don't realize is, I mean, if you really think back over the trend of all the episodes we have, even if there's someone who, for example, I've said is a shit player, or someone that we make fun of when they did stupid plays or made a really stupid statement, if we ever have them on the show, it's not like we open the show like, you're dog shit, aren't you? And then just make fun of them. If we even do that, it's self-deprecating. Like, we know the person can handle a joke. It's an icebreaker, you know. In general, whoever we have on the show, we tailor the show to who they are, you know. Like, actually, one of the things that's interesting, people won't know, is sometimes if someone's coming on the show, but they say something like, oh, but the lineup of what team I'm going to be on isn't set yet. Well, we just agree, okay, we won't go into that topic then. So actually, I think, believe it or not, I don't know if it'll ever happen. We can hope. If we ever did have a Riot caster on, I think an obvious one that I'd love to always have had on is Deficio. Someone like that, I think it'd be an amazing episode. I don't think there'd be any controversy. I don't think we would even need to discuss Riot game stuff. It'd just be about the game and getting that guy's brilliant insight on the games. It'd be a great episode, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the big problem is, Monte, because of time not allowing it and different schedules, people traveling around the world, we haven't been able to do an episode during all of Worlds. And so I understand frustration on the part of people who watch the show, which is that they wanted to know, like, after week 1, how would we have reacted to LGD going 0-3? How would we have reacted to C9 going 3-0, you know? They wanted to cheer and boo us, because we're part of the game, apparently, just like they would the players. But sadly, they never got to, because now, in hindsight, we know what happened to those teams. We know how teams turned it around. We know what happened. So what we will do, though, is I don't want to just ignore Worlds completely, the part we've done so far. What we'll do is we'll cover the group stages, but we'll do it with more broad strokes. And so we'll try to get some interesting stuff, because to me, the really interesting stuff that you can still talk about with groups is more like trying to figure out in hindsight why teams looked good early on or why a team eventually did get through. So let's just go ahead and go in like the order of the groups. So Group A was the one that almost everyone we talked to had CLG coming first tier. And what's interesting, Monte, I don't know if you remember, but a number of teams actually thought that a number of people had like some weird predictions here. Like some people thought Pain Gaming would win games. Some people thought Coup was like overrated and maybe Flash Wolves could do it. Other people thought, oh, Flash Wolves is terrible. They're not going to do it. When you look back now, surely the one outcome we could have never predicted was Flash Wolves win Group A. What do you think?
Yeah, that's very unusual, right? And all the Coup Tigers had to do is win one of those games against Flash Wolves. They could have even lost to some other team as long as they win one game against Flash Wolves, and then we may have had a tiebreaker or them just outright winning that group. And they were ahead in the early game against both games, or in both games against Flash Wolves too. But I think Flash Wolves did really well. I think that Maple had a very, very good tournament and looking like a really solid player. You had him on your top 20, which I think in retrospect was definitely warranted. And so there was the Coup Tigers. They fell a little bit. They couldn't close out the games they had leads in, which is weird for the Coup Tigers because usually they fight back from behind. They're not in a position where they're in an advantage in the early game. So I think that particular matchup proved more intriguing. CLG obviously completely shit the bed. Their playstyle was not functional. The way that they had been winning in North America with such emphasis around the AD carry and the top lane didn't work when there were players like Smed in the top lane at the World Championship. They just didn't, Zion wasn't good enough to carry at the highest level on the world stage. So when you're relying on that, it doesn't work too well.
So here's the weird thing, Monte. On one level, when people see Flash Wolves come top, they might remember your reasoning as to why they wouldn't and why you didn't even think they'd get out of the group was actually that you thought the top lane focus, or rather, you don't even have to say it like that, just the incredible strength that top players can have right now and how much they even dictate the pick ban, etc., meant that Stake would have difficulties in a group that has people like Zion and Smeb, guys who have incredibly deep champion pools and at times they carry top laners. But on one level, how did Stake do it? And on the other, is it a factor that, obviously in your case, I know you hadn't watched tons of LMS. It's for people who didn't know how good Maple could be, maybe they didn't imagine, oh, wait a minute, maybe Maple can have an advantage over Pobelter, over Kuro, what do you think the key quality was? How did they manage to manage Stake having these? He's obviously not as good as Smeb,
No, he wasn't, but he played up to an acceptable level. And even then, I think what I realized from watching Zion Spartan at Worlds is that one of his biggest flaws is that he plays as though the jungler is always there. And we know that historically the top lane talent pool in NA is extremely weak. And so he looked good in NA. But when you play this aggressive style where you're trying to fool your opponent into thinking, oh, my jungler, my jungler's here in the lane, or my jungler's in the river just waiting for me. But at the world stage where they keep track of junglers better and have better communication as a team, the teams just knew that the jungler wasn't there, so they just kept killing Zion Spartan early in the game because he was playing way too aggressively without Xmithy actually being around. So they knew that, and they were like, what the fuck are you doing? And they just killed him. So that was, I think, a major factor that Zion Spartan's style in NA didn't work at the highest level of competition. And even Stake was doing very well versus Zion Spartan. I think I overestimated NA top laners as a result. Like, the fact that Zion...
you didn't overestimate balls, though, let's be real.
Yeah, that's true. But, because Zion looked very dominant in NA...
which had seemed at the time, if you remember, during the split, it seemed like they had a pretty good talent pool at top lane. They had Quaz, they had who else? Hauntzer, they had a bunch of people who were all doing pretty decently. Impact... it was a pretty decent talent pool.
Impact, I think, it's like Impact and Zion. Quas was never that great at teleporting or communicating his position. On an individual laning level, I think Quas was fine, but when it came to synergy with his team, I think he was really off. I don't know. I think Hauntzer is very mediocre right now, so I'm not...
Fingers crossed he goes to TSM then, Monte. Let's keep those narratives going. Okay, I've got a question for you then. So along what you were saying there about Zion and his flaw, which is this idea that when you play that greedy and that up in the lane all the time, if it works, if the other guy doesn't know where the jungler is, he's not going to want to look like an idiot, go in on you when he's like half, and then just get battered by the jungler as you're retreating back, okay? But what's funny is, I've seen times in LCK where it looked like Marin did that. The difference is, he would like super greedy farm, but I always thought the reason it worked for him is because he's the shot caller, therefore he can literally be telling the jungler when he is coming up in that sense. He's not just hoping the guy comes up. Secondly, they have excellent vision control because they have Bengi. And then thirdly, even if the jungler isn't coming to Marin and he could get ganked, that means the jungler is probably, by process of elimination, closer to the mid lane, in which case, go ahead and gank Marin. Now there's a gank coming on your mid lane. Like, I always thought, it's more like there's a structure to how you do it. You can't just do it blindly like Zion Spartan does.
That's true, but one of my biggest problems with Marin as a player is that Marin has always been very vulnerable to like 3.5 minute ganks. Sometimes he just won't ward at 3.5 minutes with his trinket ward, and he'll just die to a gank because he's playing too aggressively. So it's definitely a fault with Marin too. He has had many moments where I just sit there during my cast and I'm like, well, that was easily avoidable. And he gives up first blood. But Marin has this issue too.
That's an example, though. That's why I brought it up. Because the difference is, in the dynamic of that scenario, one of them has Faker in his mid lane. That provides a different sort of pressure and intimidation factor to the mind of the opponent at all times. No one's thinking, well, shit, they've got Pogba. If we leave the mid lane, it could be some crazy outplay. That's not going to happen. So you have to have the right player for the right team, you know. Like, I actually think when you look at this lineup of CLG... Okay, I said this to you actually at Worlds. When this tournament was finished for CLG, my first thought about Pole Belter was like, I don't know where all that hype came from. Do you remember coming into Worlds? I think even Clement said it. Something along the lines of like, you know, people are underrate how good Pole Belter is, and, you know, the game could really be played around here. No, maybe it was Dylan actually who said that. I think from TSM. He might have been the one who said this. But what's weird is I always looked at Pole Belter and I thought, you know why Pole Belter does a really good job in CLG? Because he's Link, but he doesn't die or choke. That's it.
Yep.
That's all he had to do as well. Because remember, they've got Zion, he's got these advantages at NA in the top lane, and then they've got the Beast bot lane, which has always done well in NA when that bot lane's been around. So that's exactly all you need from him. Just play safe. I mean, aside from, like, I guess Victor, mostly just play control mages or supportive shit like Lulu anyway, and just don't die. That's it. It's your job. Sounds easy. It's still hard to do, obviously, but he was never going to be a carry, was he?
In the first week of competition, I sent out a tweet before the first Coup Tiger CLG game, and the tweet was as follows. If Pole Belter doesn't get Lulu, then I predict a Coup win. Because he won the first 2 games on Lulu. They lost every other game in the tournament. And I thought that they were too dependent on him being safe in the mid lane, and Coup targeted him immediately, shut him down, and just completely snowballed the game. So I think that their weaknesses were 100% exposed by the Coup Tigers, and then every other team, because Coup beat them in the last game of week 1, took a week, watched the Coup game, and then just beat CLG the same way.
Like, for me, this tournament was a great example of where people get... I figured out, Monte, here's the way to boil it down. The way that most people want to think as fans is, even if they know NA can't be really as strong as Korea as a region, and they know EU, come on, talent-wise even can't be as strong as China. What they want to believe is, but the way I'll rationalise it that my players are good is that I'll say, okay, but the reason why the top European and top NA players would be as good as the ones from China and Korea is like, it's not their fault that they don't play against better competition, and they themselves would be brilliant in those regions, okay? Well, here's a great example, okay? So Pole Belter had no problems whatsoever during all of the NA split. He was doing absolutely fine. He was doing quite well, in fact, a lot of the time. Meanwhile, most people I know wouldn't even have Kuro in their top 4 Korean mids. I mean, no one thinks this guy's particularly good, but he's like deceptively decent, is how I'd say it, for a Korean. But you put him against Pobelt and some of these people, he's not having that many problems. He's doing pretty well, actually. He's like a surprisingly good player.
He did get dumpstered by Maple in that second game, though, when Maple went off on LeBlanc, right?
That's understandable.
And I think that when we look forward, we start talking about the Coup versus Fnatic matchup. I think it's a big problem for Coup that I think Kuro has done better than I expected him to do this tournament, but I still think that he has yet to face, Maple he didn't do well against, and I think Fnatic with Fenton will have an edge over that because he hasn't actually faced that many good mid laners. Look at that, like Kami, Pole Belter. In their quarterfinal match, we faced Nagme, who was really underperforming. So he really hasn't had a test, I would say.
But I mean, just as an example of regional strength, I think if you're going to do that, you should. The only players from the West you should ever pick and be like, they're as good as like most of the Koreans, is only if someone dominates the West. Like, listen, if you're actually doing what Hooney did in the earlier on in the year,
Yes.
then we can say you do really well in that region. If you're just doing like above average to pretty good in your region, odds are, I'm sorry, but the guy who's the fifth best at your position in Korea is probably better than you. I mean, maybe not like jungle or something, but the carry roles, certainly. There's still a lot of talent in.
Well, I think we
those
could
top
say
regions.
Rush would probably be a very successful jungle.
Sure. So, okay. Let me think what else. Oh, the other question I had was, this has to disappoint you, Monte. But you know, if you remember the main reason as to why I didn't pick CLG to beat TSM in the final of an ALCS, it's not that I think TSM's an awesome team, blah, blah, blah. One of the reasons is I thought certain people who have a history of breaking down in the big match would break down. One of my picks was Afromu. Doesn't matter. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how brilliant his career's been, and he's still, by the way, going to probably in the end be an all-time great NA player, because just having great regular splits, if you do enough of them, makes you a great player. That will add up eventually. You just won't be able to be the greatest because you'll always have the knock on you that you didn't have that many good playoff runs and that many big international tournaments. So you'll never be able to get to the top of the greatest list. But you could maybe come in like top 10 at your position or something, just by virtue of excellence. Wasn't this a disappointing Worlds for Afromu?
I didn't think it was as disappointing as some of his other playoff performances. I think he did okay, but he definitely was not up to the same level of play that he was in other tournaments. And part of that, I think you can say, is that there actually were strong support players in his group.
Sure.
I mean, we were Gorilla. Sword Art is really good, actually, on the Flash Wolves, so that's going to be a tough opponent, right? So he did have, I think, a competition at his position in his group. That's for sure.
I mean, I'm not going to harp on this because it's an obvious joke, but what do you think now, in hindsight, looking back on the fact that that top 20 list from LoL Esports didn't have Gorilla, but it did have Afromu? A little bit too hyped on the NA juice?
I think that the fact that Smeb and Gorilla were left off that list is ridiculous. I don't see how you don't have either of those players, and you should have both of them on any top 20 list when it came into discussing the top 20 players of the World Championship.
I mean, I found it... What's funny is, obviously, you know, I think Smeb's fantastic, and I would have him on the list anyway, but in a weird way, because there's so many good top laners right now, I mean, I still have him. I still think he's the best top laner anyway. But even if someone wanted to make the debate that they weren't going to have him on because they already had so many top laners, I think Gorilla's the one where it's like a crime not to have him on. Because for me, he's been like the best support player in the world at times during this year.
I thought he was my highest rated support on my top 20 list. I thought he... wait, is that true? Pretty sure I had him higher than PYL. Let me check on that real quick. Because I'm pretty damn sure I did, but... I think it's important.
See, I mean, I know you didn't have him top 10 like I had Smeb and Gorilla, Monte, but then again, I'm cuckoo for the GE Tigers, so...
All right, so we're already back.
Okay.
Rubbing it in my face.
Okay.
So I knew this is just an
it was a bait. It was a bait, yeah. See, I made it seem like, yeah, let's get those LoL Esports guys. Then I was like, and then let's get you.
No, I had him at 11. You had him at 7. I had no other supports higher than him.
Yep, understandable.
I had Smeb at 9. You had Smeb at 6.
So, okay, going beyond this group then, Group B. This is the one I don't think we have to spend a whole lot of time on. But what's interesting is this actually ended up being, in theory, the most competitive group when you consider that IG came bottom of it and there was a tiebreaker for who went out in second. So this is the group where, amazingly, it actually ended up that every team had opportunities to get out of the group. Why did Fnatic end up first place in the group?
Well, they had a rocky first week, but one thing that Fnatic's really good at is like polishing one strategy or play style. I think that's why they were so successful in best of ones in the LCS. Yet they had problems in the LCS finals versus Origin. Is I think they're really, really good at just homing in on one style and just practicing the ever-loving shit out of it and making it really good. So that because of the best of one format, you can't just ban it and try and force them off their game. So week 1, they picked very cockily. I think they were underestimating their opponents, so they lost some games, making some questionable draft decisions. Week 2, they come in with the AD Kennen, easily take the first 2 games. Then Kennen gets banned, and they seem to have a much harder time against HQ. And that's one thing about Fnatic that I really am interested to see in their best of 5 in the semifinals against KOO. Um, because they'll probably have one really polished strat that they'll take a game with, but I think Ku will adapt very quickly, and it depends on how deep Fnatic's pool runs.
I mean, I can relate, Monty, because that's actually always been one of my tricks as well. I can polish one thing to such a degree that I have a huge explosive performance. But if you ask me to do it like right again, right after, like, come on, man, that's too hard. Like, you know, I mean, at that point in time, you know, I need a break to go to something else. Just maybe chill out for a little while. You know, 2 in a row is hard, but. I'm just talking about my ranked fives team actually there. I use a lot of interesting strategies, a lot of pocket picks. There's a lot of pocket picks going on there, Monty. That's all I can say, you know.
Great. Yeah. This has been an excellent euphemism.
My one-trick ponies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Alpha Draft pay for that one. Okay. So here's the thing, though. In this, even though Fnatic did end up topping the group, and a lot of people predicted that, what do you think about the fact that they managed to win the group, and yet there was times when Huni and Yellowstar, I think those are the two you have to pick out, looked kind of crap at times in the first week?
I think actually it was really weird because I expected Yellowstar to do much better, and he really played poorly in the first week. He really stepped it up in the second week, and I thought his quarterfinal performance was really good. So he was getting better over time. Huni, I think, was a victim of, you know, doing dumb shit like picking Yasuo into Darius, and I think he was very cocky coming in and got punished for it. But his Riven, especially in the quarters, was actually quite good too. So I think they got it together as time went on. But yes, they definitely, and that's what's so weird about this Ku Fnatic matchup, is we have Fnatic who lost to Cloud9 and who looks shaky against some of these other teams, and then they obviously did very well in the quarterfinals. And then we have Ku that lost 2 games to Flash Wolves, but then looked much better in the quarterfinals. So thankfully, I think we have 2 teams on the rise right here, so we should see a very compelling semifinal matchup.
What do you think of this then, Monty? Because we've got a trend of this now, where I can only assign it to youth, because it seems like youthful exuberance and over-exaggerating your own ability, where when someone's a really skilled young player and everything works for him, there's champions, he dances everyone on him, he's doing everything he wants to in the game. We've seen Huni time and time again make these picks which don't even make sense. Like, I mean, the obvious one is the Lee Sin one way back, and then he had his Gangplank, and now he's had the Yasuo one. He picks these champions which, when you even after watching the game, you're thinking, like, what was he thinking was going to happen in this game? What was it? What, he just thought it would just go super duper well. He'd just be great first time with this champion. Like, what do you think it is as a player? Because he's obviously a very good player, but why is he making these big missteps? Do you think?
I don't know. I don't know how Fnatic works, so I can't really say. But it does seem like arrogance to a certain degree that he is just going to. They pick for a composition, but they don't pick for the lane matchup because Huni just thinks he can dumpster anybody, right? It's weird. It's definitely weird.
Because that's an example, a very basic example of that trend that I've pointed out to you in the past. Most famously, it's the one that I really despised when Katie Rolster did it, where they took their biggest strength Someday and they used him to sort of have sometimes sometimes inadvertently have a bad matchup because they blind picked it, and instead they tried to cover the weakness of Nagne by making that what they counterpicked for. In this scenario, if you're Fnatic, admittedly Febiven has come through and shown that he's a phenomenal player as well, but the original Fnatic style is you get Huni on a carry champion that he likes and then he carries the game. Like, you would think that's the one condition you'd never betray. It's like, well, let's just put him on something he might be able to play just to make the comp. What do you think?
Well, also, I think that just in terms of the meta, it makes more sense to counterpick top lane these days. Because if you're in the mid lane and you can play Victor and Azir, which is what Febiven did for most of the season, these are such power picks that work in such a wide variety of compositions and matchups that you should just really pick those champions and say, fuck it, right? I think those are very strong picks regardless of the situation, and that way you save the more situational matchup for your top laner.
Like, when you look at it now, just going forwards from the group, how do you actually think Huni's champion pool holds up coming into the playoffs now? Because that was one of the things people criticised him for in the split before. They said during the summer split, you know, people thought he was only great on a couple of champions. What do you think?
I think his champion pool is fine for the semifinals. I think he's going to be in a good place. That's not why I would worry about Huni. I would worry more about Huni tilting than I would be ultimately concerned with his champion pool. Okay. I think he's an emotional player that when he gets behind can have some issues, and he thinks he always has to be the hero. So if he starts to lose, he'll just like try and win harder, which oftentimes results in him getting killed more.
when you go back and you look at the fact that IG had this Korean jungle mid. I mean, listen, if this is season 3, that'd be the ideal formula. Let's have this awesome jungler mid coming from Korea. In theory, in a group like this, you're against Cloud9, you're against AHQ, even Fnatic to a degree, you should be able to get advantages there. You should be able to do something. And in the end, at least Cacao seemed impotent in this group. What do you think happened to him?
Lack of synergy with his team. I don't know. He just farmed. I mean, he was shit. He had one game where he dealt like 800 damage to champions on Skarner. He was just awful. It's not really much to say. I don't really know what happened with IG. We knew they were inconsistent. But I think the teams that played against them very intelligently just targeted Kid and Kitties and shut them down entirely and just got massively fed off of killing them. And that's what you should do against IG because Kid and Kitties are not very good players. And so just ignore the mid lane, try and play safe in mid, and then work on Kid and Kitties, get your advantage from there. Going back to Fnatic for 1 second, because we already talked about this with Kuro, one other interesting aspect of Fnatic is that Huni has yet to face a good top laner. Zatai wasn't very impressive at this tournament. He was against Balls. Ziv actually did pretty well against Huni. And then in the quarterfinal matchup for Fnatic, they played against Koro, who hadn't been playing in months and who did not seem very well adjusted to this meta, nor did EDG as a team really seem to play around him. So Huni's been doing great, but so Kuro and Huni I see as very similar. So Kuro on the Ku Tigers, we haven't really seen him against very good mid laners, and when he came up against Maple, he didn't do awesome. Huni did better against Ziv than Kuro rather did against Maple. But we're still in a position where Huni has yet to face the level of challenge that I feel that Smeb is going to offer. And with the Ku Tigers, Kuro has yet to face the level of challenge that I think Febiv is going to offer. So it's a really weird matchup in that way.
Okay, on IG, what about Rookie? Because obviously we both had him very highly ranked. What was his actual performance like?
A Rookie actually, surprisingly, was doing over 40% of his team's damage. So, I mean, it really wasn't Rookie's fault. The numbers between TSM and IG were very similar in terms of damage share on the team, where everyone else on IG was very low, in the bottom 4 for each player in their position, respectively, out of the 16 teams of the tournament. But Rookie was quite high. So I think Rookie was doing pretty much all he could with that team, just like Bjergsen was, but the team around him was just not up to the task.
I know it is like at all times when we're discussing Worlds, you do have to remember it's a totally drastically different meta and patch to what the actual regular split that most teams got the chance to have a chance to qualify from at least. So with that in mind, how do you think Zatai managed to look decent when he was at LPL and then do so badly here?
I mean, I've always really liked Zatai as a top laner. I think he takes too many risks. I don't think he's a very stable or good player. So I think what happened to Zatai was, we talked about it being good in this meta, sure, but he's not the smartest player, right? And the other factor, when we talk about player smarts, where we have to talk about how Cloud9 managed to go 3-0 in the first week. I think Cloud9 is a very smart team, and they found a strategy that worked. Unfortunately, they didn't have more than one strategy, which was, we're just going to fast push with Veigar and Tristana and move up the lane like that, or Azir, right? They take a control mage, they fast push, and that was the extent of their strategy. They were good at that one thing, but it got red and then destroyed in the second week of competition.
So there's a meme, Monte, that people say, oh, Riot always buffs, usually they say assassins, but the idea is Riot always changes something coming into the World Championship. Has there ever been... No, that's the question I'm going to ask, though. It's never been as drastic. Like, for example, since we're talking about top lane, remember, most people who've been a good top laner in 2015 have made their money playing Maokai, Na, a little bit of Hecarim, some Shen towards the end. Where the fuck are these champions in terms of the contested picks and the ones that are carrying games right now? None. It's a different world.
Baby. Yeah, they buffed a huge number of these powerful carry type laners, and champions like Maokai got nerfed. So, I mean, we're still seeing Gnar to a relatively decent degree. Maokai's nerfs combined with other champions' buffs or reworks change that, so he's not such an attractive option anymore. Hecarim, I feel, is too item and gold dependent compared to a lot of the other top laners, so we're seeing less of him, and I don't think he's very good. So, yeah, it's a massive, massive sea change, right? And that's the big problem, because teams like EDG, who made their mark with a very different style of play of League of Legends, just didn't have the tools. Amazing J and Koro, and not only that, but they just weren't stylistically up to the task. People will say, oh, Amazing J and Koro were shit, but they were also getting no help from their team. Like, their team played really badly around carry top laners. So that was a systemic failure from EDG more than anything.
When you look back now, when you consider we've had such a drastic change combined with the most upsets we've ever seen at a World Championship, the two must be connected, right? It can't just be a coincidence.
And also, we saw teams that in the first week of competition, it was about who had the best read on the meta, right? SKT obviously had a very good read. C9 had legitimately a very good read. CLG had a very similar style to C9 in terms of strategy, and these worked. But as soon as the other teams got over the surprise factor, we saw very different results in the second week, right? NA went 0-10 in the second week of play because their tricks had been figured out or they had been adopted and played better by other teams. So, I don't know. I think that I personally very much believe that this was the wrong time to do this patch. I'm not against the changes that they made, actually. I think the changes are interesting. And
would have been better maybe halfway through Summer Split to do these changes?
Either earlier or just after Worlds. You know what I mean? Because I don't think the changes themselves are bad. I just think that when you have a patch and then you have 0 competitive games after massive changes, because Riot doesn't even know how it's going to operate. They can't possibly know how all these pro teams are going to take these champions or deal with them. And so 5.16, we accidentally got some Chinese games on it, right, for the qualifiers for Worlds, but that was not intentional. And that patch should probably never have been used because it was so broken for competitive play. But they, between the release of 5.16, they got Chinese regionals, and then they got nothing, right? So how are you supposed to balance a patch when you have 0 competitive games on said patch, or try and balance these champions when you can't see how the professional players and teams are using them? Because even though Riot, I think, has a generally good balanced team, they don't have, when every pro player in the world is trying to like break this system and figure out what's the best, there's just so many more people to identify the flaws and make the changes. So I really don't think that this patch should have been done immediately before Worlds. I think it's crap.
It also feels like that's where, if you wanted to speed up the process of pros breaking things, if they had some kind of like a sandbox mode, I feel like you'd identify things a lot quicker, Just my thought.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think there should be a sandbox mode, but there's a difference between what players will do in scrims or a practice environment versus how they will play when they're really trying at the professional level, right? So I think this should have come earlier or later. I think when it came was really, really poor. And it really affected the first week of Worlds. By the second week of Worlds, I think most teams had adapted well. But, I mean, come on. Like, you have to look at the difference between NA's performance in week 1 and week 2 and be like, all right, they were smart, they were clever about certain things, but it all came apart in week 2. And some of the teams that I think, especially the Chinese teams that failed to prepare well or caught off guard, I don't know.
How did you like that brief period where people were speculating that Tam Kench would be a flex pick at 4 positions?
He still could be played in the jungle, especially since Gragas has been disabled, and that might do weird things to the jungle pool if Rek'Sai and Elise are banned in games. So I never thought he would be played top lane. Support and jungle are the positions that he may still be played in.
So since you mentioned about like people who adapted to the first week, that's actually the way that I would. Here's what's funny: I wouldn't shit on Cloud9. Actually, I'd give them massive props because what's great about what they did in the week 1 is they are a team who realistically never should have even had a chance to get out. As it turned out, didn't have a chance, but gave themselves a glimmer of a chance by finding a really clever way to play their group, which other people in the group had no clue what to do against.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And then admittedly, once it was exposed, then they had nothing else. Well, obviously they didn't have anything else. That's the whole reason why everyone who went too hyped when they won the 3 games, unfortunately, now has egg on their face. Because it's not that they just got unlucky 4 games in a row. What happened was, as expected, they had nothing in the toolkit, but they came up with a super Like the one way they could have won some games, they figured it out, which props to them. But at the end of the day, you have to play 6 games, unfortunately.
Well, that's why
7 in this case.
The Score. Yeah, 7 in this case. I had an interview with the Score esports, right? And the interviewer asked me, "What do you think about the underperformance of NA?" And I was like,
I think that was actually Daily.esports. I'll just give them credit there, Monty.
Oh, was it Daily.esports? Yeah, it was.
Just because it would be too BM for me to just leave it like that. Monty doesn't know who's interviewing him. It's all a haze to him, you know. One of these little scrubs just interviewing. Okay, go ahead, Monty.
Apologies to the Daily Dot. I like their content alongside the Score. Both of them are good. Anyway, but he asked me, what do I think about the underperformance of NA? And I was like, what do you mean underperformance? I thought both TSM and Cloud9 were going to go 0-6. In my mind, they overperformed. Certainly CLG did poorly, but I didn't think CLG would be making it out first in their group, and I didn't even know that they would make second in their group. I was, a little bit more relaxed on that one. I did predict they would make second, but I thought there was a lot of room for upsets in Group A. So, yeah, I mean, I CLG underperformed, I guess, a bit, but TSM and C9, in my opinion, overperformed. So, especially C9 by a lot.
Because, I mean, just to put a cap on the C9 part of this discussion, this might sound like a crazy statement to make, Monty, but when you see what incredible work Hai was able to do when he came in and got them through the gauntlet, and now he got them through the first week of this, unfortunately, people will be like, wow, imagine if he plays next season. I'm sorry to say this, but I think that was a great run, and that should probably be the end. Like, I don't know how he's going to be a world-class jungler, and how, unless you make radical changes to the rest of the team, how that team can continue with that lineup. This was the best you could expect from them. They came from 7th place, miraculously made Worlds, miraculously won 3 games. What more do you expect, guys? That's pretty good.
Seriously, I do think that Hai was a miracle worker in this regard, especially his individual development as a player, going from this like a Mumu devour Shyvana shit to actually having respectable jungle showing on real jungle champions.
He played Lead Sin. He played Lead Sin, for fuck's sake.
And he did well. So I think, but it's just a matter of Hai. You have to not only consider that situation, but also, I mean, the guy can't even play that much because he has a serious wrist injury, so he can't even practice to the level that I think it would take to really compete for the next year. I think this is kind of a one-and-done thing, and he did great. He defied all expectations. What can you say? He took the team from 7th place to 3-3 or 3-4 at Worlds, which is amazing.
I mean, we'll get to this discussion soon, but for me, they should think of Hai this year like that people should have thought of Lost Boy in 2014, which was, as a player, Lost Boy was the ultimate band-aid fix, because you needed a strong support player, someone who could play like engaged champions. He came in, did all of that, but he was a guy who speaks Korean, and he was a guy who could never be the shot caller, and a guy who had all these downsides where he's at the apex of his career long before that. And so they should have seen him as the ultimate band-aid, used him for that split, used him for the Worlds, and then looked at something else for 2015. They didn't. It bit him in the ass in the end. And so for Hai, obviously not as a player is he a band-aid fit, but he's the shot caller. That's what they needed in that team. They had no direction till he came back in as the jungler. So again, it's a band-aid. But the whole point of a band-aid is you don't leave it on forever. You have to rip it off at some point, guys.
Well, they also changed their coaching structure, right, in the team. So Babadub coming in, I don't know, not having talked to him or observed him with the team, I don't know how that would have gone, or how it did go, but that was another change that they made, right? So there were infrastructural changes too. But yes, I do agree with you on that front, and I do think that there was a lost opportunity for TSM for a smooth transition away from Lost Boy. Get another support on the team that Lost Boy can mentor very actively as a support player, sort of be a positional coach for him, keep, maybe stay as the starting lineup, but slowly start to work this guy into scrims and develop an NA talent in the support position.
So, okay, in Group C, this was the one that, in theory, did go by the numbers. Great show. Watch on Alpha Draft's YouTube channel. No, but the thing is, obviously the results were fine in the end. In terms of SK Telecom, I don't think we need to talk about them too much because we'll talk about them later in the playoffs. But actually, the numbers were deceptive here because EDG wasn't very convincing despite getting out in second. I mean, it's one thing to have like big losses to SK Telecom. You could forgive that, but I'll never be able to get over that Bangkok Titans game. Like, when I actually think of it now, Monte,
6K down to the Bangkok Titans.
I don't like to take one result too far, but there is a part of me thinks, did you really predict EDG would beat Fnatic after that Bangkok Titans game? And I did, Monte. I did that. I said that, I meant that, and I stood by that. So, but now I look back, it seems a bit crazy.
Why do you have to make fun of yourself before I can make fun of you?
It does seem a bit crazy that I did that. Like, Bangkok Titans almost beat EDG, right?
Yes. Yes, they did, Duncan. Yes, they did.
So, looking back now, were the signs already there for EDG that they were going to have problems?
Yes. Amazing J wasn't playing well. The team didn't understand how to play around the top lane in this meta. And I think that, I said this many times, like, I don't think that EDG can fix the stylistic problems that they have in a week. You can't just suddenly learn how to play around a carry top laner because they were doing such a shit job at it earlier on in the tournament. And I also didn't like their draft. I didn't like their stupid Kassadin picks in the quarterfinals. I thought their draft was really fucking bad. So I was really skeptical. I didn't think it was going to be a 3-0 for Fnatic versus EDG. Okay, I thought it was going to be like 3-1, 3-2. I would not have predicted a 3-0. But I did think Fnatic was going to win that series just because there were an insane number of issues, from individual player performances to team performances to team style, this team's style of play. I mean, Amazing J just being bad. Like, there was a ton of stuff.
This is an example for EDG where I feel like it's just a good moment to point out how flawed people sometimes think about coaching. The problem I've noticed is they make coaching almost this godlike meta science of how a team works. And so they think, for example, that a good coach can just look at whatever the meta is, and no matter what tools at his disposal, just create something that will work. Now, let's be real. Aaron is one of the best coaches to ever grace League of Legends. This guy's fantastic. Absolutely. But my theory on coaching in general is, yes, you try and adapt where you can with what tools you have. But in general, you have to have the right coach. He has to have the right style for the team that he has. And usually, you find this in professional sports, coaches, even if they've coached for 30 years, tend to only coach their teams in one certain style. Like, for example, I mean, I'm not an NFL guy, so I can't give you examples from there, but I know in basketball, people who like to have small guards that are very fast up and down the court, and take a lot of three-pointers, or you have people who like the slow, grinding style where you pass it to the big guys and they go, just try and score 2 points. It's like a totally different philosophy. And basically, if you give one of those coaches, who might be a fantastic coach of that style, the exact opposite either demand, like tell him to play the other way, or even worse, give him the exact opposite type of team, it won't work well. Like, they need to sort of be paired up.
So here's an example from the NFL. My favorite team, the Denver Broncos, I'm from Colorado, currently has Peyton Manning, who's one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time in the history of the game. And they got a new coach this year named Gary Kubiak. And Kubiak is a coach that likes to play with a very run-heavy style of offense where the quarterback is under center. Meanwhile, Peyton Manning has played his entire career pretty much in the shotgun formation. And so the clash of styles has led to the Broncos having one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And they're still trying to figure this shit out because the coach style and the quarterback style, the player style, are so like at odds with each other.
Whereas they previously had like one of the best offenses, right?
Right. 2 years ago, they broke like all the NFL records for offensive production. And now with many of this, not the same players, their offense is objectively worse in terms of players, but they really suck now. So fortunately, I mean, the team's still 6-0 because the defense is amazing now, but it's been really not good on the offensive side of the ball for that team. But that is actually probably the best example right now, I feel, in professional sports of having like the coach-player mismatch because it's so obvious.
Because when I look at EDG, I mean, this is where, I mean, it'll sound weird. So EDG bombed, they didn't do very well, and so people are going to think, right, well, how can he possibly say, like, I was right about that? Here's the weird thing. When I looked at EDG, I always thought the star player of EDG, the carry, is deft. And the game is still about get deft to the point, and then beyond that, Clearlove had great impact, and then Koro used to be very good.
But Koro did well by himself on tanks, right? That's the thing, is I don't think Koro's a bad player. I just think that EDG's style was we're going to leave Koro to his own devices, and he's going to play a tank and then be the front line. The thing about Aaron is that you have to remember is that Aaron has always played around 80 carry-centric teams, right? WE, He had Wei Xiao, then Name, then now he has Deft, right? So he's always had some of the very best AD carries in the world to work with, but that just isn't going to work in the current meta. We look at what the meta that's developed at Worlds. Look how powerful AD Kennen is. Look how powerful Ashe is. These are utility AD carries, and the top laners and the mid laners are really carrying, right?
And the other thing is, even the style of AD carry he had, yes, someone like Name at times could play aggressive style. Wei Xiao obviously was amazing in every style of AD carry, but they were all late game style AD carry. The idea was get to the late game and the AD carry wins the game for you. That's not the world you live in right now. You don't see that happening right now. Like, it's all mid-game centric for most of these teams. And the early game's super important.
And two of the teams in the semifinals, Ku and Fnatic, their most impressive wins have been when their AD carries are playing Ashe or Kennen. Yep. They play for hard CC. That's not normal.
By the way, Monte,
those styles have been very successful.
Just as an aside, for my own amusement, and maybe just to let you know what the public think. So, recently in my Thorin versus Reddit video, I brought up the never-ending topic that I always like to talk about, Monte, which is the idea that Reckless isn't like a superstar AD carry. Admittedly, he's improved a lot for this Worlds. I notice he does play a lot more of an aggressive style. But even so, here's one of the reasons, Monte, that people really gave as to why I'm obviously a blind hater. They said, what are you talking about? He doesn't go in and do damage. He's playing Kennen. Look at him. Look at the damage he's doing. It's like, I think you guys have missed the point there. The very fact he's playing Kennen is exactly why he's not a suicide AD carry carrying the whole game. Yeah, sorry, I think you've made my case for me there, guys. Sorry about that one there. And he also plays Ashe, by the way, like a motherfucker. So here's the other thing, though. You're right about Korra 1, by the way. Korra 1, that's the one area that was, I think, deceptive about Korra 1 as well was. What made him amazing in the spring was he's primarily always been a utility tank player who needs nothing and he can just make miracles out of it. Okay, he can always do well and then he always is really good in the team fights. So he always was the Maokai, Na type player. But at times, he was on stuff like Hecarim and he would have carry games, but it was only really like the rare carry champion. So it made it look like, well, he can do both styles. Yeah, but the point is now it's not both styles. Now, in most cases, you're going to have to only be a carry top, and it's not going to be a self-sufficient carry top. It's going to be, you're going to be the carry top, and people feed you and get you rolling. You're going to carry the whole game. That's a very different carry top.
You have to play around the lane swap properly so you don't get behind. Your jungler has to babysit you, and Clearlove he's not using, Clearlove's never had to play in that fucking meta. Like, I think Clearlove did very well this year, and I think he's a very good jungler, but he obviously doesn't know how to play around a top laner. But has he ever had to, really? That's the other thing is, because Aaron has been on all these AD carry-focused teams, guess what? Clearlove's been there the entire time, right? And he really showed at this World Championship that he did not know how to play around carry top laners.
I mean, listen, during the spring going into MSI, Clearlove really, he was always a guy who had great curves, but he decided, I want to have the beach body for the summer, okay? So he really put in a lot of work in the gym. He was doing his Pilates, he was doing a lot of like Zumba or whatever. And he got like, his ass was looking pretty good. His hips were like getting pretty nice. But then you know what? He let it get to his head. He thought like, if you don't love me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, So he let himself go, and he still has a great pair of tits, but this wasn't the time for that, Clearlove. You're now in a swimsuit contest.
Well, he won the first swimsuit contest, right? Before he let himself go.
But he let himself go, that's the problem. So yeah, the other thing I want to make a point of about EDG, and this one, Monte, I won't even deny it's entirely self-indulgent. It's just to toot my own horn, not referring to earlier on, that's Fnatic strategy, and it's just for the sake of maddening fanboys, including LoL esports writers. So here we go, Monte. Remember all those people who used that logic that like Pawn is the best mid laner in the world. He is a carry mid laner. And I've always said he's a fantastically skilled player, extremely unique player. He's never been a carry mid laner. Well, guess what? In a period where you're having massive top lane problems, even Deft isn't looking that good at times during the game and can't get to the point of the game where he would win anyway, that's exactly when good old Pawn should be coming out and rocking heads, right? And where the fuck was he? Where was he? So listen,
getting soloed by Faker and playing shitty Cassidon.
So listen, LoL sports writers, listen, Saint Vicious. There's your boy. He had his chance. Someone gave him. He stepped up to the plate. Someone gave him an underhand pitch, and he fumbled it, and he couldn't even bunt. I don't know anything about baseball, Monte. I don't know anything, mate. I don't know anything about any of that shit. Who cares? It makes it better anyways. I don't know even what these terms mean.
Can you give us some cricket analogies, perhaps?
I don't know
since
much
you're
about
British?
cricket's an upper class thing, but yeah, I don't come from that world.
You
So
watch tennis. That is a fucking upper class thing. Yes, it is.
to a degree, I only watch. Actually, one of the main reasons I got interested in tennis, believe it or not, is it's a bit like how I first got interested in Boudoir. It's not because of the game; it's because of the structure. I think is one of the best. So I think Boudoir had the best structure in esports because you had these like 6 individual tournaments per year, and so you had all the great storylines and repeated chances for great individual players to meet and get to championships. And it's similar in tennis. Like they have a great structure of the majors, and it goes through the year, and they seed really well. And so I think those actually produce the best tournaments. You know, not like a super long league format, which gets quite boring. And by the end of the league, someone who wins isn't necessarily the person who's the best at the beginning. You know, I'm not a big fan of those sorts of games, Monty. But let's keep earning money. So here's the other question I had for you. Oh, by the way, also, you know what's beautiful, Monty? I have such an appreciation for irony. I love it. It's so beautiful. And it's only really good if the other person doesn't realize it at all, if they have no self-awareness. So you know, Monty, when I always used to say that all porn does in Samsung White and EDG, a lot of the time, I mean, a lot of the time, they're not all that he does. A lot of the time, what he would do is he would just be left in a position where they had so many good players at other positions, he could just counterpick the mid lane all day long and fuck with the other mid laner because he wasn't even required to carry. So if he fucks with them, great. You got in another bonus. There's a luxury, right? So you know what's great, Monty? When Faker faced Pawn, he was like, fuck you. I'll just power pick you. And I'm not even going to try and be the carry. I'm just going to fuck you. Like, I loved it. And then you know what's great, Monty? The Pawn fans.
And then just like kill him.
Yeah, here's what's great.
Tier 2.
So you know what's great? The Pawn fans got mad and they said, well, Faker only won because he counterpicked him. It's like, beautiful. How do you do that? That's almost like willed. That's genius. How did you do that, guys? God, how did you do that? You're genius. Incredible. That's just amazing, isn't it? That actually happened, Monty.
Is it more or less sweet than my victory after my crusade against Chinese sandbagging? Because I feel that I may have finally slain that dragon, that the teams where I was advocating for the Occam's razor approach, where the simplest explanation was the best. So the fact is that I just thought they were not very good. And here we are.
Here's the thing. Let me be real about this. So I think that's funny. I think it's funny that they had I think the theory about Chao Gu and how they were like purposely lane swapping badly just to get good at it was like, I think that's an utterly ludicrous. Unfortunately, that's an example, right, of what's an entirely understandable human behavior, which I totally appreciate as to why Chinese analysts had to go to such weird lengths, which is this. The data you get from LPL, I don't think anyone could get no one could analyze the LPL data the same way you can the Korean data or even the NA and ULCS data.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
It was incredibly problematic.
The amount of signal noise, because there's so many games, and there's so many games that people are fucking around with, as in just picking stupid champions because they won the first game, or putting in a different player completely that wouldn't be in the starting lineup, because there's so much signal noise, like as any human does. You try and make a pattern out of the noise. And you look for some sort of pattern that vaguely fits. And if it doesn't fit that well, you're going to have to make it a super complicated conditional pattern where if this happens and I guess this goes. And so I understand why they did it. If I was trying to analyze the region, it'd be very hard for me. I don't think I probably wouldn't even do as good a job as them. They probably did come up with some good theories. So I don't blame them. In that scenario, I think people have to realize they were in many ways analyzing the hardest region in the whole world.
Yeah, because there wasn't any. But that's the problem, is because what we learned is that the Chinese infrastructure is so unstable that they can't even make rational decisions around that, right? Because it just seems like all their decisions, especially with preparation, and a lot of people are going to say, well, you said that LGD and EDG would be great at Worlds, and I mean, you have to believe that just based on the strength of their individual players, and what we saw from them was amazing at times through the LPL season. But at the same time, I was the one who was harping LGD has infrastructure problems, they have coaching problems right before this World Championship, and I think that really showed they were not prepared. They were not prepared.
Here's a great example, Monty, of how you take logic, and the best scenario I've found to show people how wrong they are is not to tell them what a more reasonable metric of logic or line of logic would be. What you do is you take their own logic and take it at a different point and just show it to each other. You show it the mirror of what it is, okay? So the people who got really mad at the Chinese analysts and they said, you idiots, you said China would be really good and they failed utterly. Well, you know what's funny, Monty? I remember the same people saying, you guys all said TSM would do really well, Fnatic would do shit at MSI, and look, TSM failed and Fnatic did really well. And then people add a third part in, Monty. And the third part is the best part, because it goes like this. How could you be a real analyst if you couldn't predict it correctly? Okay, let's take that premise as correct, Monty. Show me a real analyst in the world. Because we need an analyst who predicted both of those things, right? If they're a real analyst, they could predict correctly. TSM would do well at MSI, badly at MSI. China would do badly at Worlds, and Fnatic would do well at MSI. And remember, if they have true analysis skills like this person purporting, they will be able to predict that. I don't know a single person in the entire world who said that. There is no one who said both those things.
This Worlds have been so full of upsets. I think that coming into the semifinals, there were 2.2 million pick'ems, right?
Yep.
I think there are 5 people left with a correct bracket out of 2.2 million. So I think it's safe to say that this World Championship has been incredibly difficult to predict accurately.
You know, people have said, Monty, I've said it myself, that I'd love to sit down. In fact, my joke was I'd love to do a documentary that followed the 5 people who still have a chance to win this thing and just find out what their everyday life is. Like, can they put their socks on, you know? Are they able to run a bath for themselves without slipping? You know, I don't want to know these things, but that's a joke. That's a facetious comment, obviously. Here's the thing, Monty. If I had to really guess without knowing them, I bet that I will be right when saying this. Those 5 people, I can't remember if the number's 5 or 3 that are still viable, you know. Whoever the 5 or 3 are, I'm willing to bet they're actually people who know nothing about esports and just sort of blindly picked the pick'em. And just, I don't think they purposely picked any of these, and you know, I think they just did like random ones, and it just so happens if enough people, if enough monkeys and enough typewriters, you end up with Shakespeare. It's that sort of a scenario, you know.
Yep.
There's no way someone really sat down and went to like Chinese analyst levels of like, well, I guess then what would happen would C9 would somehow come with a strategy like this, but that would then be read by the other team. There's no one in the world did that, and so it's not even correct analysis, unfortunately. But God love them. Hope you win. My favourite, Monty, was after the group stage where one guy still had a valid pick'em, and then someone just said, do you own Championship Rhythm? And he said, yeah, I already have it. That's another example of life. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's just a great place to be. Okay, so there's one more group we have to talk about. My favourite, so I saved it till last. You always save dessert till last, Monty. You got to eat your dinner first. You got to have your vegetables. That was Group C. That's where you have to face the hard truths. You got to have like sort of the nice part of the meat. That was the Group B, where there was a lot we could enjoy there. Maybe some mint sauce, a nice sauce to go on the side, of Béarnaise sauce. That was Group A, just the rich sauce of CLG, Failure and Tears, mixed with the delicious mapley syrup, and then the coup majesty, the garnish around there. Now we're into dessert, Monty. It's Group D. So here's the thing, Monty. You're probably going to think, what are you talking about? Why are you enjoying Group D? LGD failed. You liked Group LGD. You thought they were one of the best teams. Yes, Monty. But you know what? There was no chance that Flame was ever going to get to play at this Worlds. Flame would go his whole career. He'd have never technically played at a Worlds. Just as far as I'm concerned, he hasn't really won LPL. He never played any of the games in the final of LPL. He only played the games that were like the last when they were going to win a series 3-0. But you know what, Monty? Somehow they found a way. And I'm glad they went 0-3, Monty, because then I got to see 3 games of Flame. He won 2 out of his 3 games. Therefore, he's actually technically got a better winning record than every NA team and most other teams in the league. And he won 2 of those games. And what's more, even the order they went in, Monty. So first of all, he came in. It's true he hasn't played in like a month, except scrims. He has to play someday. You have to realise almost everyone. That's why it's a miracle that, well, it's not really. That just shows how good Smeb is, that Smeb could actually beat Someday in a best of 5. Very few people are going to beat Someday right now. The guy's absolutely phenomenal, especially in this tournament. For me, Smeb's the only person who could. And Marion, in as much as Marion's team plays around him, they're the only 2 I would give a chance to against Someday, because even people in Korea struggle against him who are phenomenal top laners. So, okay, fair enough. You lose, you get wrecked by Someday. That's fine. But then you go against Origin. Everyone's been all over Soaz's dick because Origin won the first 3. Obviously, you know, not only was China bad, Monty, but it turns out all analysts were wrong, and actually the West's the best region, and you know, maybe it's their time. So in comes Flame, and he says, "Oh, hey Soaz, yeah, I remember you. I used to play you like like late 2012, early 2013. I used to play you a bit back then, didn't I? What used to happen then? Oh, that's right." down you go, boy. And at the end, Soaz was even like, "Flame, you are my favourite top laner." It's like, right, good. Bend the knee. See, Soaz, you are a regal character. You are a prince, but a prince must bow to a king. I hope you realise that, Soaz. You do.
I would like to remind everyone right now that Thorin put Soaz on his top 20 list and not Flame.
Well, I didn't know Flame would play it, so I was actually being fair, by the way. I was actually being fair. Like, I obviously think Flame's better than some of the players on that list, but I notice I also didn't put anyone who's a sub, basically. So anyway, here's the other thing, Monty. But then the way it ended It's all about how you end, Monty. You always have to end in the right manner. So it ended with Dyrus playing the last game of his career. And if you want to talk about someone who also was like, Korean top laners formerly of Blaze, I believe I have a history with them. And they were like, Dyrus-san, he's not even Japanese, but I'm making him Japanese. Dyrus-san, may I have this dance? And he was like, certainly, sir, you may lead, as always. And then they just bashed his fucking skull in. And as usual, his career ended internationally against Korean top laners, the way it always had been him anyway. So it checked so many boxes for me, Monty. TSM losing, Flame winning. It was in many ways one of the jewel games of this tournament for me.
I can see that. I'm glad that you had your cathartic experience.
It's great.
And can move forward with your existence from now on.
In fact, what's even better, by the way, Monty, is that because they didn't get out of the group, and they almost certainly wouldn't have anyway, because they didn't get out of the group, because obviously Origin was going to beat TSM, so they would even if they'd won all three, they would have finished in third anyway. The genius is, Monty, because they didn't get out of the group, I can now say, and I mean this, don't worry, if they'd have started Flame, then they would have gotten out of the group, and none of you can prove otherwise, and I have a pretty good evidence to put on my side, and you all now have to live for the rest of history knowing I believe that, and that it doesn't matter about Season 6, he won't be on LGD then, or if he is, probably won't be the starter. Doesn't matter, it's over, guys, it's over. So just as you guys believe that Fnatic could have beat SKT in that best of 5, I get to believe this. And none of you can stop me. Real talk though, Monty. Do you think
turning the logic
if they had have actually started Flame, which by the way is ridiculous, you couldn't have, because no one could have known Akon would have that many problems. But in a hypothetical where you did start him, would it have changed anything?
I think it could have. I think Acorn played really, really badly, uncharacteristically badly. I mean, this is a guy that I had, number 6?
I had him very high as well, Monty.
You had him at 10. I had him at 5 on our top 20 players. Well, I had obviously very large expectations for Acorn because he had proved in the LPL that he wasn't just going to be a utility top. He could carry out a lot of champions. He had really diversified his playstyle. He's obviously always been one of the top TP users in the world, and he looked like a fucking trash can at this tournament. So I don't know what was going on with Acorn, but if it was the case that Flame could have had the same performance in week 2 or in week 1 that he had in week 2, I think it's definitely a better choice. But I also don't see a world where you start Flame.
You wouldn't have. That's the thing. Yeah. It could never happen in that sense. Like, the order wouldn't have been there to start him. So here's the question I have for you though. In a weird way, people might not understand this because of how badly God V performed. They will think, obviously, God V's the biggest shock on that team. In a weird way, I actually think Acorn's the biggest shock. Because the difference is, God V's never been to a massive international tournament. You've only seen
Acorn's performance was way weirder.
We've seen Acorn play internationally. He's played so many seasons in Champion. This is a guy where, when you combine his last 2 LPL splits and then his last 2 LCK splits before that, I mean, it's called OGN at the time, so 4 domestic splits in a row, this guy was one of the best players in the world at his position. No matter what the meta was, no matter what the champions that came in, he was a phenomenal player. In fact, that's 20 years. It's the LPL period. I always respected him in Samsung Blue, particularly because the series that stands out in my mind is the one they won. Because he went against Save, who at the time was fucking everyone up from the top lane, and he just manhandled him, even on shit like Lulu. He just controlled him completely, and he basically neutralized Save to the degree Save could do nothing in the series. So aside from his brilliant play elsewhere, I always respect him for that. But then when he went to LPL, most people, as you would expect, I was kind of hoping he'd do not so well and Flame would be the starter. But watching Acorn play, because unlike people who are fanboys, I'm not a hater. Once I saw how well Acorn was playing, and that when Acorn played, they often would win, and when Flame played, even if he played okay, they would lose, I could see that, well, obviously Acorn's the better choice to start here. And actually, he won my respect even more for what a fantastic player he was, playing a carry style for the most of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, aside from this blip, unlike God V, I don't think you can write him off. Like, for me, this was just a one tournament blip. I don't know what happened, but he's still an all-time great player for me as Acorn.
Absolutely. I mean, his competitive history shows that he's an excellent player, and I don't know what the fuck was going on, because this was really, really weird. And Acorn's not a player that I would have ever said tilts. Like, he's so consistent. Yeah. So this was even, for me, out of all the players, I agree with you, out of all the players in this tournament, okay, so we look at some of the other teams. EDG, like, I understand what happened with Clear Love and the style that EDG normally plays. I sort of I understand what happened to the EDG members. I understand what happened to the to the IG members, right? Because they are famously inconsistent. IG is, and okay, rookie actually did okay. Maybe Cacao is another one that was a little bit weird, but Cacao as a jungler has always been kind of a high risk jungler, right? That was the style of the KT Arrows back in the day when they won champions. But Acorn, who's been so solid, so consistent, who has diversified his playstyle, that's the really weird one.
So, when you talk about LGD, the main person you do need to talk about. Here's what's funny. Okay, so Acorn had these massive failures I just mentioned there, and that is shocking because of what a great player he is and how accomplished he is. TBQ, the miracle to me was that he ever worked in the team, not that he then turned out to be shit at Worlds. He always, that for me, what he did at Worlds now is how it always should have been. I don't know how they made it work. I mean, I kind of do. They had amazing players in every single lane, most of whom could just play the game without needing jungle ganks. So that's the formula to have someone like TBQ in the game. But the one that's shocking, obviously, is God V. Because he really was. People now, again, are going to retcon it that he just never was one of the best. No, he was
just
absolutely
like Name. Just like one of, with Name last year.
He was absolutely one of the best players in the world.
Yeah,
what do you think of him
agree.
at Worlds?
And that's why I said on Twitter, I gave him the Dade Cup, which is the award I now give since Season 3 every year to a world-class player who we know is super good, randomly shows up at Worlds and then chokes. It was Dade in Season 3. He was terrible. It was Name last year. Is fucking awful. Godv, I will say Godv actually picked it up at the end, but he did have a couple good games to end the tournament, right? He did do better. But the shit he was doing, man, it was like, stop playing fucking Varus. And before all the Chinese people get mad at me, I know that he was a good Varus player, and I know he picked it a lot during the LPL. But I just don't think that's the style you want if you're LGD. I think you like, if you are the fucking team that invented or like brought back the teleport mid and was playing super well with 2 teleports on the map, just play that. Just play the Diana. We know Godby's super good. I'm sad we didn't get to see more of his Orianna because he's such an amazing Orianna player.
Certainly. And, I mean, the guy plays almost everything. It's ridiculous. Here's the other thing that's so weird about LGD, if you think about it. Okay, when we're criticising EDG, as we've kind of outlined, there's nothing EDG could actually do. They didn't have a toolkit. There was no player who could play top lane, carry, etc. What's weird about LGD, Monte, is being fair, like we did with the Flame case, you could never actually have implemented these changes because you'd have to have like omnipotence of what's going to happen. But if you did go back in time now, they're the one team I think you could actually fix, in as much as you couldn't fix God V, but you could literally put Flame top lane and you could put Xiaoxi in the jungle. You'd already fixed 2 of the problems right there. They actually amazingly did have the tools, but you just never could have known that was the big problem.
Well, and even though it actually ended up being beneficial for LGD to have Flame instead of Acorn because of how hard Acorn underperformed, before the tournament, I was actually surprised that they would bring Flame instead of Xiaoxi, their jungle sub. Because I was like, TBQ, Acorn was playing super well. I was like, what is the weak link on this team? I was like, the jungle position, TBQ. Yep. Why not just bring Xiaoxi and sub him? Now, it turned out that bringing Flame was the better idea. Okay, we know that in retrospect, but I don't think that was a smart decision given the available evidence beforehand.
So, okay, aside from LGD... Oh, by the way, one final point on LGD. I know, especially because of that thread where on like Chinese Facebook or whatever, Mata had said like kind of jokingly to Imp, like, you're the first player to ever like fail group stages twice from the Koreans or whatever. I know people are going to want to make that link. And so essentially, if you just look at results only, you don't look at the play, you'd think...
Imp actually did fine.
You would think Imp has like the all-time most fucked up career ever, because he's made a sandwich out of one of the best Worlds performances with 2 of the shittest in terms of results. The problem is, realistically, he was never the problem, by the way, in any of those 3 tournaments. Like, even in Season 3, he was one of the better ones on the Ozone that totally failed. It was mainly, like, Dade. For me, it was mainly Dade and Mata who were, like, the shocking ones. Imp was okay. Yeah. Then you look at Season 4, he was obviously fantastic. That whole team was fantastic. Season 5, I think he was the best player on his team. He was one of those guys who was, like, doing everything he could, but you can't as an AD carry 1v9 the game from minute 1.
Even when he lost, like, the Kog'Maw, when they were trying to run Juggernaut, like, he still had, like, 7 kills against Origin. He was doing fine. He really was doing fine. So I don't think he had a breakout performance. Like, for example, if we were to compare Imp to other teams that lost, like, I actually think, well, how do I put this? I think Bjergsen had a performance that was very good in the laning phase. I do question some of Bjergsen's team fighting, so I'm not really going to put him at the same level. But I think Bjergsen had a pretty solid performance on a team that didn't support him. I would put Imp in like the same category. So it wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a fantastic performance on a losing team, but it was an above average performance that was made to look worse by how crap his teammates were doing.
So when we talk about TSM, Monte, and you talk about their failure internationally, you have to obviously address the way they use Bjergsen, because to me that's always the thing I look for whenever they fail. Is like, did they put more good champions? Did they put good comps around him? Did he even have a chance, basically? Because if everything goes to shit, at least he's like one weapon that nearly always is there. Obviously, MSI, that was my big criticism, that they just put him on these champions where he was never going to do anything, well, at least with the comps that they'd built. At this tournament, at least they put him on his champions, right? He had some games that were going all right.
He did, especially his Twisted Fate game. That one was interesting. The thing about Bjergsen, and from talking to a lot of players here at Worlds, and then from doing a lot of VOD reviews of the TSM matches, is very good in lane. Very, very solid player in the laning phase. But a lot of his team fighting, like I brought up, is really sketchy. He'd be dumping LeBlanc combos onto ulting Alistairs in team fights, or he would be improperly using his abilities in other team fights. So I actually think Bjergsen needs some work in the team fighting phase of things, but in the laning phase, he's very good. So other players that I talked to about Bjergsen felt, I think, similarly. I was talking to some of the Korean players who are like, well, he's very good in lane, but his team fighting is a little bit weak. And I definitely felt like I saw that over the course of the tournament.
Even though they put him on all these champions that historically he's had a history with. I mean, admittedly, in his early days, he didn't used to be a TF player, but he can play it now. They put him on... Here's the thing, Monte. He played a different champion in all 6 games. Now, that in itself's a bit weird, because, again, it shows that, in theory, TSM doesn't show a whole lot of focus to Bjergsen. They don't try and get him on a specific champion, then build around what they're going to do. To me, that's the ultimate failure of TSM, is that they really have, for some reason with their coaching, tried to act as though there's no such thing as player weaknesses and player strengths. They think they just have 5 players and that you play the champion and all that sort of bullshit, and they just put whatever comp they want in the game that they think will work, even if the player can't pull it off, or it limits a player to be on a certain champion.
I don't know if I agree with you. I think they did put an emphasis on getting Dyrus, Gnar, and Darius because they're champions that they know he can play.
He also played Malphite.
Sure. Well, that was not good. But I think in general, like, TSM is trying to do the best with the tools that they have. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with you. I think that the opposite point of that is they try and just like pick very heavily for Bjergsen, and then they end up getting counterpicked in other positions, which is an even worse fate. I think they're trying to use Bjergsen's flexibility and his deep champion pool to hide the flaws by priority picking for other players, right?
But here's the thing, Monte. Most teams will come in with certain comps they want to run. So not only did Bjergsen play a different champion in every game, Wild Turtle played a different AD carry in every game. What, does Wild Turtle have a 6 champion pool, deep pool, does he?
No, I think they should have emphasized Tristan Jinx for him.
I mean, that's what I mean. The whole coaching approach was so weird to me. Like, if you're losing games, what, you're just going to drastically change it every single game? I mean, to run as many comps as they're trying to run here, you'd have to be one of the absolute best teams of all time.
I also think that C9 was a team that... But C9's always been this way, right? If we talk about C9 as a team, even back when they were God tier in NA and they were just dumpstering everybody, they like... Ash Zyra every game, every game. C9 is a team that always runs
and rumble every time they could get it top. They found what worked, and they just ran it. They did it Korean style. You find what works, and you just keep it going until it fails.
Yep, it's true.
So I mean, if everyone wants to talk shit on the LGD coaching and they want to talk shit on the coaching of, well, all you guys with the NA flags, how about TSM's coaching? I mean, there's only 2 possibilities here, guys. Either you don't think the players were good enough, which, by the way, I don't, or you think the players were good enough and then they were mismanaged. But I noticed people haven't arrived at either of those alternatives. Again, they've successfully shielded that part of hurt in their brain from the trauma of the incident, and now they just never could have got out of the group anyway. No, this was an abject failure, the way they played the games.
I mean, I expected them to go 0-6, so I guess I had less expectations than you did.
I didn't expect them to win many games, but they didn't even give them a chance from what I've seen of the way they approached the tournament.
I think, from a coaching perspective and thinking of the options, I don't know what realistic options they had. I think they came into Worlds with a weak team and it was really, really difficult to find a successful strategy for that team. I don't know what I can tell you, like, I don't know what I would have done differently.
What do you think about trying to play stuff like Lysandra and Syndra in this meta?
I think Lysandra is a viable pick right now, especially as a LeBlanc counter pick. So I think there's that aspect to it. Syndra, I'm a little less sold on. Certainly a good lane bully that maybe you can snowball out with, but Syndra definitely falls off in the late game. So,
like, does it surprise you that we didn't just see Bjergsen on like Diana and stuff like that?
I don't know. I think Bjergsen's best game was on TF. So that was the game they won.
Okay, as we go in, yeah.
I just think some of his other champions were. I think he needs work in his team fighting. That's what I'll say after watching this Worlds.
So as we go into the playoffs, and we'll talk about like Flash Wars' origin and stuff, one of the interesting things was this is a meta in which you can play the old Fnatic dual teleports, which Origin obviously did. If people had known that in advance, could any other teams have implemented it? Would it have worked for their style?
I mean, you know, what's funny about that is from talking to a bunch of the other casters, we were really confident that double teleport was going to be a huge part of the meta at this World Championship, just given the relative lack of assassins that are viable right now, and therefore a declining importance on 1v1ing in the mid lane meant that there were a lot of relatively low mobility mid laners that could come back and use teleport not only to get back into the mid lane faster, but because they were going to farm and start going other places on the map or split pushing. So I think it's interesting that some teams didn't really take this into account coming into Worlds, because everyone I talked to among the casters, we knew this was coming. As for teams, I'm surprised that LGD failed in a meta that they were definitely on the vanguard of. That was quite shocking. That was one of the reasons why we thought LGD would be one of the favorites, was they were very experienced. Unfortunately, I should have actually seen that coming with Origin, with Peke and Soaz, and I didn't make that connection. I did after the tournament started, and I was like, oh, right. Of course, I'm an idiot. I should have made this connection earlier. But it definitely suited their play style.
So let's talk about that then, because going into the first quarterfinal, it was Flash Wolves Origin. Now, this is where, Monte, unfortunately, by the way, you would think in a tournament where two European teams made the semis, that European fans are going to love these episodes, right? It's the North American fans that are going to hate it because they went 0-10 at the end of last week and everything went bad. No, it's European fans who are going to hate this episode, Monte, and here's why. Because as we talk about Origin now, they're going to be like, oh my God, can you just say they're the best already? Can you just say they're really good? Why don't you just say it? And they're going to get really mad thinking I'm downplaying them when I explain the context, Monte. So first of all, Origin got out of their group because LGD had one of the biggest failures, one of the biggest implosions we've ever seen from a tournament favourite in the history of Worlds. In fact, in some ways, I'd say this blow-up was almost as bad, might even have been worse than the Ozone one in some ways. Because at least even Ozone beat Vulcan twice, and at least they were there in one of the Gambit games. I even think that the Ozone one might not have been as bad. This was, from the level of where they should have been, LGD, to where they were in the tournament, it was terrible. And so anyway, Origin got out the group. Great, good on them. They played well. But then, let's be real. What fucking universe can you get out of a Worlds group in second place and have someone tell you your quarterfinal opponent is Flash Wolves, the second best team from Taiwan? Any fan who can sit there right now and go, that's totally legitimate. Nope, seems like a reasonable draw to me. No, that is the best draw in the history of there will never be a better draw than that in League of Legends Worlds history. I'll tell you that right now for the quarterfinals.
I don't know. In Season 3, SKT drew Gamma Bears.
That's just because of the buy system, though. In this season, you actually needed Flash Wolves to win their group that had Coup Tigers and CLG in it.
And if Coup had won, it would have been Origin Coup instead, which I think Coup wins. Definitely.
Sure. So yeah, that's what's amazing about it is. So Origin, yeah, in their group, I guess they locked out in terms of LGD being shit, but obviously they did what they needed to do. Fair enough.
And they played much better than anybody thought they would.
Obviously. But to get to the quarterfinals, I'm sorry, this is the freest fucking quarterfinal in the history of the universe. I don't care what anyone said. I'd love to see an argument against it being so free.
And for those European fans, let me just direct you right now. On the front page of the League of Legends subreddit currently, there is a video of Origin's reaction to the quarterfinal draw. These guys are in fucking heaven over this quarterfinal draw.
They were.
So don't tell me that Origin thought, oh, we would do well no matter what, because they were pretty fucking happy about that.
Well, let's remember the teams they could have gotten. So they couldn't have gotten KT, remember. So the two they could have gotten is SK Telecom or Fnatic. That's the two options they had. Now, yeah, so obviously, anyway, just putting that aside, the reason why I have to make that context, though, by the way, and why people are getting even madder, Monte, is they got by far the easiest matchup for the quarterfinals, and they still didn't win it convincingly. They won 3-1, and yet almost every single game, Flash Wolves were in positions where you'd be like, they can win this game. They should win this game. They will win this game. And then Flash Wolves played a big part in why they didn't win that game. What do you think?
Yes, Flash Wolves definitely had a lot of advantages in some of those games, and I think that probably the series should have been even closer than it was. My main concern is, like, okay, so XPK came into the World Championship, and he started playing... XPK was not a very good mid laner for most of the summer season. And
at least he wasn't a star. He was just like a standard type mid laner.
He was below average. Average. And I don't know whether that's because he's owning a team and he has to do all this other work, or what the deal is, not practicing as much. So he obviously practiced a lot, and he came out much stronger at the World Championship than we had seen him. But this is one of those other things where it's like, I feel like we were deceived initially, because Peke, he comes out, has this teleport Orianna, plays really well, has a really good like Orianna game against LGD. He starts playing this Anivia, then we see the Twisted Fate, so he's like churning along, and everybody's like, wow, where'd this XPK come from? And then the good games, like, that's it. That's all we saw. You know, his champion pool at Worlds has been 4 games of Orianna, 4 games of Anivia, 1 game of Victor, and 1 game of TF. And he keeps picking Orianna, even in times where, like, TP Orianna does not make sense. You can say, okay, well, he's played, what, 10 games, and he has 4 different champions. It's not terrible. But my main problem is, he keeps picking TP Ori when it doesn't make sense in a team composition. So that makes me think he actually doesn't have any other champions. So my question about XPK is this a guy who, like Cloud9, like polished up one strategy or a couple champions, and that's it? Which makes sense because he only had a few weeks to really work on it before the World Championship. But man, when we talk about the semifinal matchup versus SK Telecom, and now we see that EasyHoon is starting these games. I think this is actually a smart decision from SKT, because basically they've said, okay, well, XPK is just going to play these teleport control mages where he's just going to recall. There's no kill pressure on the mid lane because he plays so conservatively. So we're just going to match you with EasyHoon, who will also play control mages, except EasyHoon is a better player. So in the late game, when we have Peke versus EasyHoon, they're basically SKT saying, we're conceding that this is a farm lane. Because of the way XPK plays. He sits under his tower. When he has problems, he just recalls, buys another Doran's ring, teleports back to the mid lane, and you never have kill pressure on him. So if you don't have kill pressure on him, why play Faker? Just play EasyHoon, who's great on Azir, who's great on Orianna, who's great on Twisted Fate, who's great on Lulu, and just concede. Concede that you're just going to TP around the map and play their own game and beat them at it because you have the better player.
Like, I actually think that this XPK is shocking to me. I mean, this is another example of why you don't use that pattern of like, well, something happened twice, therefore it'll definitely happen a third time. So remember that whole thing of XPK gets the world's buff. Yeah, that only happened twice. Guess what? It happens until it doesn't happen. As soon as it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter what happened in the past. So the point here is...
to be fair, he did get the world's buff.
A little bit. But here's the thing: he was
much better than he was.
No, but he was never Season 3 and Season 4 Worlds XPK at this tournament.
Okay, yes. He's not out. Last year, I think fans have to realize, last year he was busy, like, out-dueling Dade on Talon versus Zed, right?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So here's the thing. When we had Froggen on the episode, Froggen tried to make it like, oh, well, the thing is, the reason why XPK doesn't look that good is just because it's a mage meta. And, like in Season 2, that wasn't so amazing. Right, the reason why Froggen's saying that, if this is my read, is because any of those like godlike old god mid laners like Xpeke, Froggen, Alexic, the reason they never talk like any of the others have dropped off is because they've both played each other for so many years, all three of them, that they really do think all these guys can always come back and they can always do things and they can always be very good. I get that, okay. But I think Froggen actually was kind of like underestimating how far Xpeke's slipped. Because it's not even like he was just playing old, like just a mage style that doesn't fit him. He wasn't even playing champions that gave him any chance to carry in these games. He was playing nothing aggressive. Remember, it's not like you can't play any assassin. Dude, he can play fucking LeBlanc. He used to play Fizz back in the day. He can play... I mean, what else can he do? He could do Syndra if he really wants to. If he really wants to push it, he could play Cassadin. So he doesn't play any of these champions. Instead, not only does he play Orianna, the most safe shit ever, he tries to play 4 games of fucking Anivia. And by the way, everyone who's always on Froggen's dick about playing Anivia... Froggen's Anivia looks a hell of a lot better than Xpeke's Anivia. Let's get real. Xpeke's Anivia was very underwhelming. It was just like extremely standard, and he was getting beat up by Maple most of those games. Who was playing LeBlanc, who was doing shit like that.
Yeah,
I think he kind of got showed up, even though Origin won.
I think Xpeke is similar to Cloud9 in that he started out strong he had a good read on the strategies and what he was going to play. He polished them up, but when people started to get wise to his play, didn't look that great anymore. I do think that, as far as Origin's concerned, one player that has been doing really well is Niels.
That's actually a point I wanted to make as a bridge point here, which is that, okay, so in the past, Xpeke, let's think of Season 4, where they had the good players at every position. They had the top laner, Soaz, still considered one of the great players. They had Xpeke in mid lane, and then they had Reckless and Yellowstar were obviously a great bot lane in EU. Now, what's funny is one of the reasons I used to criticize Reckless, as I used to say, to me, he's not close to a superstar. Because first of all, he plays with some of the best solo laners who are known for being stars in the game, and the team even still plays around them, and he's just like the third carry role player. Now, the reason I used to criticize him then is, even with this wonderful bot lane, Xpeke still used to get his. He used to get his champions he wanted, he used to carry the game, he used to play aggressive. Well, okay, maybe now you could say, hey, well, maybe he leaves Niels and Mithy to carry from bot lane, and he has Soaz top lane. He plays differently from how he did even in Season 4. It's not like it's the same setup in that sense. So to me, the real star of Origin has obviously been their bot lane. Their bot lane has been fantastic, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Mithy and Niels have done really, really well at this tournament.
And in this series, Niels was a big part of why they won the series.
Absolutely. I think Niels is a very talented, and talk about a fucking amazing rookie player. This is his first season in the LCS. My God, he's doing great.
Okay, so the other thing about this series was, Monte, on the Flash Wolves side, what do you think their big problem was? How did they get all these leads in all these games?
Well, I think Maple did very well. I think Karsa did some work also. I think that Flash Wolves had a surprisingly strong early game. I think Stake was able to hold up in this tournament much better than I predicted. So, I mean, we saw them really come out on top early on. I was surprised to see that, but...
Here's my theory, Monte. At Worlds, Flash Wolves is the worst counter-initiate team I think I've seen. As in, all you have to do to win a fight against Flash Wolves is go into your jungle somewhere, start a 5v5, just as in you do the initial initiation, but it's one where both teams can still back out. And then don't worry, it's like, they're like the Thresh in Bronze that has to go in on every Q, As soon as you start an initiation, they're like, they've stopped, they've backed up, counter-initiate. And then every time they counter-initiate, that fight's a 100% loss. Like, they would always spiral that into a terrible loss where they didn't need to. It almost reminded me of fucking Team Liquid, dude, where they would try and make these ridiculous fights and plays where it's like, you already have the lead. Just fucking play the map.
Yeah, I also think that I really liked Origin's drafts in this series overall, too, compared to Flash Wolves. I think as much as we can talk about Stake, like he went back to playing Aurelia, which was super questionable. Stake tried to get away with just playing like Gnar and Malphite and tanky champions, and he couldn't cut it when it came to playing carry tops, which I think really hurt the team. But I mean, Origin kept getting Tahm Kench. They played, especially their last 2 games, they played Jinx Tahm Kench, which is one of the most powerful combinations in the meta right now, and then they played with Lulu and Jinx, so you had that combination up too. Meanwhile, Flash was trying to play with Aurelia, and it just doesn't look that particularly strong. So I think Origin definitely had the better read on the meta, and they had the better players for the meta. Like Stake, I think Stake's champion pool hurt them here.
So going forwards, well, let's do the other quarterfinals first. So SK Telecom against AHQ. Now, to give the fair props to AHQ in converse to what I just did to Origin, you have to be fair. AHQ got the worst draw you could get as a second seed. They did get SK Telecom, and unfortunately, it does feel like, as a result, you were never really going to see what AHQ was capable of. What did you think of this series?
I thought it was quite one-sided. I think the game, especially Game 3, lasted longer than I expected, but it was still only 43 minutes, which is, for a long game, not that bad. Westor did well, but I also think by Game 3, SKT, I don't know why they fucking picked Kassadin. I think it was really terrible. Bang still showed up huge, though. Marin did work on Fiora, and I mean, it's pretty expected, honestly.
Were any of the AHQ players able to show you anything in that quarter? Obviously, it was an incredibly hard matchup. Was anyone surprising?
Not really. I mean, we knew that Ziv and On were pretty good players already, but they just paled in comparison to their opponents in the laning phase. I mean, Bang and Marin obviously did a lot of work during this series. I think what was most amazing to me about this series, Thorin, is that SK Telecom made it through this best of 5 without showing anything at all. They won 3-0. Okay, Faker played Cass. I don't think Faker's going to play Cassin in the finals. They played Ryze some more for Faker. Okay, they played Lulu for Faker. Marn was just playing like Fiora and Renekton, which we already knew he could play. The one new pick we saw from SKT is Tom Kench. And Wolf was great on it. He worked really well with Bang. But otherwise, what's incredible about SKT is that they have shown almost nothing surprising throughout this tournament. They just keep playing the same picks over and over, and I know they've got more up their sleeve than this, right? But we're not seeing it. We haven't even seen LeBlanc as a pick again. Faker could absolutely play LeBlanc. He's one of the best LeBlanc players. He's probably the best LeBlanc player in the history of the game. We also know he can play Riven at a super high level. Where are these picks? They're not here.
So you think SKT's just saving shit?
Why not?
Or they didn't need to use it, rather,
Yeah, no, they didn't have to at all.
Do you think that there was anything HQ could have done differently? Like, could they have won a game? If there's a way they could have honed in on something?
They were doing well in the third game for a while, but Bang completely took over that game at a certain point, and they fell off and couldn't actually translate the advantages they got in the mid lane on Westor's Fizz, and Westor's a very good Fizz player, played it well into Faker, got those solo kills, but it just wasn't enough. And then they mega threw at Baron.
Unfortunately, this Worlds, for me, nothing changed about Westor to me. He was exactly the quantity I knew he'd be. He hard picks champions that don't always work. Sometimes he'll always have a game or two that he does something on them with, or he'll have kills that he gets on people. But even then, it's not the same as when some super duper assassin player, it's all the meta in his favor and the team works around him and you snowball the whole game off that. That you're not even assured to win the game when he does that. So unfortunately, as we've already mentioned, that whole putting him in the top 20 list was just put it this way, I'll give you an analogy. That was like if you did a list right now of the best players in the world and you put Mad Life in there. Be like, well, no, not for years. That's just ridiculous. Why would you wouldn't. Not only that, but put Mad Life in there and didn't put Gorilla in. I mean, they didn't put Gorilla in. As an analogy, because they didn't put Maple in, but they put Westor in. So it was just, that almost showed a willingness to just refuse what had happened in the last 2 years and to just make your own storyline, basically. I do wonder, though. I do wonder if I should make a LoL Esports Choose Your Own Adventure. Does Faker not even become the best mid laner in his team? Do you choose to start Easy Hoon for the next 2 years? If so, go to page 76. I'm going to do it, mate.
So
okay, I'll remember that one.
That would be hilarious. So how do you feel about Easy Hoon starting versus Origin?
I think it's fine in terms of here's what the thing. I still don't like it for the same basis of why I made the video about how COM was ruining esports history, which is that I don't care if it's better. I still want to see Faker utterly smash Origin and then continue being the best player ever. I pay my money. I don't really. I get paid money. But in theory, I pay my money as the spectator to watch the best player of all time play the fucking game. I don't want to know that he did some funny stream highlights. I want to watch him play the actual game. I think the same goes for any sport. So on that level, I don't like it. Now, if I'm just thinking as if I'm the coach of SKT, yeah, I think it's a great approach, actually. And in fact, not only that, I think the genius of it is, if you use it, you're very likely going to still win the games. And even if eventually you lose, say you win the first 2 games and Origin steals game 3, cool. Bring in Faker for game 4. They have no preparation against what you're going to do in terms of they can't have played against it and know what you're going to do. You can now even play champions you haven't used all tournament long. Comps you haven't used all tournament. It's almost impossible to lose when you have that extra, like, secret weapon almost. You know, it's not even a secret, but you know what I mean? You have that extra level, extra gear that no one else has. And I also think there is no way EasyHoon's going to have a problem against this Expecte's champion pool. Like, yeah, if Expecte was back on shit, like, if he was playing something like LeBlanc or Fierce or something, maybe, but I don't think it's going to happen, so I'm not worried about it. So I think EasyHoon's almost the obvious play.
Yeah, I mean, we know what Expecte is going to do. He's going to play. Well, maybe he's going to surprise us, but based on current information, he's just been farming with TP. EasyHoon will do the same thing. EasyHoon will be the better player in team fights. That's it.
To me, there is one chance for Origin alone. It's not a chance to win the series, but it's a chance to do something and make the games interesting, which is, for me, the Origin bot lane has to play super aggressive. Like, they have to do those ridiculous moves where they just try and make a ridiculous play 2v2 super early, because that could happen.
Like the level 2 all in.
That's possible. That's something you could do, and then, but that's about it. I mean, I can't see any other lane in which they have favorable matchups. I can't see how anything's going to work out. Like, for example, as much as everyone might love Amazing, and he's been one of the better junglers in this tournament, I don't like a world in which Amazing has a guy going all over the map, putting wards everywhere and warding up all his shit, and then they know where he's coming from, and that's going to be a big problem for them.
Yeah.
Because normally you'd think, right, he's an aggressive jungler, maybe he can make plays. How's he going to do that? I mean, I guess, to go back to your original point, if you're Amazing, mission number 1 should be, at the beginning of every game, as fast as possible, get up to the top lane. The second Marin comes across the midway of his lane, go in on him. There you go. There's a play for you, right? From the Kikis book of plays. Let's go for it, boys.
I mean, Marin is, he has a tendency to underward early in the game, and he has been susceptible to ganks in the past. So that's a way you can abuse it. We know that about him as a player.
Problem there, though, is, Monte, if you know that and you're starting EasyHoon anyway, just have Bengi top lane for the first 10 minutes. Problem solved. There we go. Sorry.
It's true.
There we go. You do not get to choose your own adventure. Do you choose to gank Marion within the first 4 minutes top lane? Sorry, Bengi is there in a ward. Okay.
It's also problematic because the Gragas disable hurts Origin much worse than
he was spamming that a lot.
Yeah, so it definitely hurts Origin quite a bit. I mean, we could see him go back to Lee Sin, and we know Amazing's a good Lee Sin player, but
I assume he'll try and play Elise a lot as well.
Bengi is a player that we know when he has a chance to just ward and play the jungle pathing game, he's one of the best junglers in the world at doing that. So when you disable aggressive early options, that's a meta that Bengi is really good at, right? If Rek'Sai and Elise are banned, and Gragas is disabled, and somebody has to pick Lee Sin, well, whatever. Bengi will just play Evelynn or Nunu, and who cares? He's really good at those champions.
So here's the dream, Monte. They leave up Elise for a game. Amazing locks it in. He goes to the top of the map, first 5 minutes. Soaz is playing Darius. Marin just attempts to harass a little bit. Flesh cocoon, as my introduction voice would say. He gets the cocoon. They get the kill. Problem there is, I don't know how you then snowball that into an entire game.
Especially since Soaz, the main problem is Soaz he's a good player, but he has shown, especially at this tournament, that when you start to camp him, I mean, look at that KT game where he's 0-9.
Oh,
he overextends. He overextends without vision, and he tilts, and then he feeds.
That's always been the problem with Soaz. It's not that he tilts as in he's nervous or he's choking. He tilts in the sense of it's almost like he refuses to believe that he's in a losing match. He's never the guy who's right, well, I'm a couple of kills down, time to play safe, maybe be more tanky, just wait, let other people carry. He's almost he's like the solo queue player. I must get it back. I have died once. I must kill him once, then get a kill. Then I'm 2 kills up. That's just going to lead to you being 3 kills down, mate. Like, that's not going to work on the top international level versus Someday or someone, you know, like, it's a bit naive to think that will work in Season 5, I think. Okay, so I have one other question, actually, which was, how do you think AHQ would have done if they'd played, I mean, they could have played Flash Wolves, they could have played Fnatic, how do you think they would have done? I mean, if they played Flash Wolves, they'd be in the semis,
Flash
right?
Wolves. Yeah. I don't think they would have beaten Fnatic.
Would they have taken games off Fnatic?
Well, they couldn't actually have played Fnatic because
I mean KT rather. That's the other team they could have played.
No, they would have lost to KT. But
okay,
they probably would have taken a game or two.
So Fnatic played EDG, and it was a 3-0 for Fnatic. Now again, are you ready? Let me set the stage and make all the EU fanboys triggered, tilted, faded, and done.
By the way, fuck the Fnatic fans right now. I thought that
control,
TSM fans were annoying. They are, my god.
Here's the reason they're annoying, Monte.
Fnatic fans, let me. This is a special message to Fnatic fans. Your team is good. Fnatic is a very good team. They deserve to be in the semifinals. I predicted them to beat EDG. I did not think it would be a 3-0. I think the players are good. I love Daylor and the coaching staff. I think they've done a great job putting together the infrastructure. You should be proud of this team. Please stop being fucking assholes. Stop it. You're being douchebags everywhere on social media. Your team is good. Can't you just be proud of them without having these absurd expectations of this team? Fucking stop it. Thank you.
Here's the difference, Monty, between a fan and someone who likes a player. So I like Flame. When Flame won 2 games, I didn't say Flame is the best player in the whole world. When Smeb, who I think is the best top laner, I've always thought was the best top laner for most of the year, I don't then say Smeb is the best, therefore everyone who said Smeb isn't the best is an idiot and is wrong and must now also acknowledge Smeb is the best. In fact, when I say Smeb is the best, even now when he's beaten someday, I still acknowledge you can make a case for other people. My case or my criteria is like that's being reasonable. You can still like a player and think they're very good without going above and beyond. The problem with Fnatic fans right now, and why they have exceeded TSM fans, is only the most ridiculous TSM fans really did think Bjergsen was better than Faker and they were going to win Worlds. I know actually, I've very rarely ever seen that like as a serious comment. Usually they were trolling when they said that. Even TSM fans were within the bounds of like, well, maybe we could make a semi or something. Fnatic fans right now are at the level of like zombies battering down the gates like brains, except instead of brains they're saying, say they're the best, say it. And say, unless you say that Fnatic's the best and they're the best at every position and they're going to dominate and Feathervin's better and Faker, unless you say all these things, it's not enough. They want blood, Monty. That's the level they've gone to. They're so out of control with this bloodlust that they're going to win Worlds. Even if they win Worlds, it's not likely going to be a dominating performance. It'd probably be a miracle win, like a very hard-fought match against KOO, and then a miracle match over SKT. You've got to be realistic here. No one's saying... It's funny, you know people always accuse me, Monty, of bringing up straw men. Fans do it all the time. So that what happened is, if you say, stop being so obnoxious Fnatic fans, they'll be like, what, so we're not allowed to support our team? Yeah, that's what I just said. I totally said, stop being obnoxious. And that really meant you can never like a team and actively say you like them or have an icon of the flag. Yeah, I mean, that's what I said, right?
Well, no. And it's also
just don't go too far with it.
It's also misconstruing my statements. I mean, I think Fnatic's a very good team. I legitimately think that this semifinal is extraordinarily difficult to predict, okay? I think it's really 50-50 between KOO and Fnatic, and I'm still reviewing VODs. I'm not even sure on my prediction yet for this match. So I don't know, as of the recording of this, I've got a couple more days for myself to review VODs and come up with a prediction, but it's super, super hard for the following reasons, okay? Fnatic lost to fucking Cloud9 in the first week of competition. I don't think their drafts were good. KOO lost to fucking Flash Wolves in 2 games. So I have questions about the KOO Tigers as well. Kuro has been performing well at this tournament, but he got dumpstered by Maple, and I think he hasn't played against good mid laners yet. Feathervin, I think, is a better player than him. Conversely, Huni has not played against good top laners, and I think Smeb is a better top laner than him. So we have 2 players that haven't really had the stiffest competition at their positions. Yellowstar underperformed in the first week. Gorilla had an off game too in the first week. They both looked much better in the second week of competition. And then in the quarterfinals, I thought Gorilla and Yellowstar both played excellently. So we're about even there. Then we start talking about like Prey versus Reckless. The bottom lanes are kind of even to me, really. I think the junglers are both mediocre. I don't think neither Hojin nor Reignover is particularly great. I think they're very like average to slightly above average junglers. I think Smeb is better than Huni, and I think that Febvin is better than Kuro. So we're coming into what I think is a very even matchup. Stylistically, also these two teams, group stages. 6 games of group stages for the Coup Tigers, 4 Ashe bans, and they pick Ashe the other 2 times. 100% pick ban. This is a team that's very focused on utility, initiation, AD carries. What does Fnatic do? They struggle in the first week, then they switch over to this AD Kennen. Okay, that's a crowd control AD carry. Why do you play crowd control AD carries? Because you want your mid and your top laners to be your actual damage carries, right? So they have similar styles in terms of what they're doing. And I promise you, from looking at solo queue, Prey has played like 20 games of AD Kennen in the last week. He will have it ready as well. I don't know whether Reckless will have Ashe ready.
I mean, he has played Ashe.
Sure, but to the same level.
Probably not as good, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I think Prey will be a perfectly adequate AD Kennen by the time that the semifinal matchup rolls around. I don't know. Maybe Reckless will be a great Ashe player. I don't know. I think that both of these top laners are strong, but Smeb has more finesse and depth to his champion pool. In a meta where Gragas is disabled, I think Hojin has an advantage because Hojin plays Lee Sin and Reignover never really has. So what is Reignover going to play? Okay, you'll say Olaf, but you have to remember Hojin plays some really weird shit like Trundle that's been very successful for Coup. They have pocket jungle picks that they practice specific strategies with. Also, what I was referring to earlier in the show, Fnatic has shown they're very good at best of ones, and they polished this AD Kennen strategy, but when Kennen was banned, against AHQ, they struggled a lot more. They did. They didn't look as crisp, or so if they have a specific strategy for the semifinals, that could be banned out by Coup, and then I think Coup has more strategic flexibility than Fnatic does.
By the way, Monte, just before I forget this, because it's not relevant to this, it's just going to be for something before. I just forgot. I would be remiss, Monte, knowing the trend of this show, if I didn't mention the delicious, succulent irony that Amazing might have champion pool problems after one of his champion pool is banned out because he mainly plays that one champion. Oh God, it's all the same again, isn't it? We're back in season 4, boys.
I think Amazing's much better now. But
sure, but it's just a funny little side note, isn't it?
It's humorous.
So, okay, when we're talking about this series here, Monty, I've got an initial point to ask you, and I think it might sound edgy, but I really think it's the case. I actually think it was better for Fnatic that Coup came through than KT. I think KT would have had a better chance against Fnatic than Coup does.
Why do you think that?
Because I think actually the style of KT, where you know that they're going to roll the top laner and he's just going to dominate, I think Someday would do even better against Huni.
We'll see what Hojin does.
In terms of an overall style of the game. Smeb might win in the lane better.
I think that would be good because, unfortunately, what we saw in the quarterfinal matchup was, Score actually played very well in terms of his jungle pathing early, and he tried to feed the shit out of Someday, and Someday played really poorly in that series. So, he threw away the advantages that he had, that Score had gotten him. And I think Score is a better jungler than both Hojin or Reignover. So they would have had an advantage there, in which case, if Someday had gotten fed and not fed himself afterwards like he did in that series, it's a possibility. But Coup, I think they also have a bag of tricks. They showed that they can play this Veigar sieging style, which I think really suits them. Now that Fnatic has shown how strong this AD Kennen pick is, that actually fits very well into the wheelhouse of the Coup Tigers. Just as the Ashe does, if Reckless can play it. So I think this is a really cool matchup. I'm really excited about this particular best of 5 because from an intellectual, when I start thinking about this, the similarities of the teams and the strengths make it very compelling to me as an analyst.
Well, that's why I find this semi interesting, because since in the end Coup came through to the semi, now we're in a world where this is an example of where you can't predict things a month in advance. The reason why people would say Fnatic can only go to the semis and no further is because no one told us they'd be playing Coup Tigers in the semi-finals. We thought they'll be playing SK Telecom, EDG, LGD, KT Rolster. This is like the 5th team we'd get to, probably before we'd say they. So if anything, they've got a very good semi-final match. They've got the only semi-final matchup I can think of where they legitimately are an even or maybe even slight favourite, depending on what criteria you favour. I think they're more like a 50-50 myself. I'm edging it slightly to Coup, but
I think it's 50-50. At this point, I would say maybe I'm trending towards 55 for Coup, just based on the match reviews and the VOD reviews I've done. But I find it, like, intellectually, I'm really struggling with this matchup as to who I think is going to win because I think it's so close. And before you fucking idiot Fnatic fanboys go off of me, let me just put this. Fnatic is a very good team. I think they have a very good chance of going to the finals. Very good. In fact, nearly 50%, maybe even over 50% by the time I actually make my prediction. I don't know. Maybe I will. But in 48 hours, when I actually have to go on the analyst desk and make that prediction, I might predict Fnatic. Right now, I am leaning ever so slightly to the Coup Tigers. That's it. So please stop putting words in my mouth about your team. I've always thought your team was good. When I said they had a 30% chance of making semis, like Thorin said, it was because I assumed that teams like LGD and EDG and KT were going to do better. Fnatic has been excellent this tournament. They are a world-class team. I've enjoyed watching them. They might make it to the finals. If they make it to the finals, they're going to get smashed by SKT, but so will anybody. Coup will have the same fate.
The thing is, though, when you look at the matchups, we've already seen Huni has some champion pool problems. Let me just pop the bubble for anyone who naively is a Westerner and thinks, well, it's easy. All you do is ban Fiora. Now, you got it the wrong way around there, mate. Smeb is not a Fiora one-trick pony who just somehow that got the... Otherwise, why would it have been gotten through for 4 games straight? The reason why it got through 4 games straight is because KT really thought, like, it doesn't matter, that won't happen again. And it happened every single game, and he was just unbelievable every single game on the champion.
He is the best Fiora player that we have seen yet. He is amazing on that champion. And I think KT's problems were, for example, why were they banning Tahm Kench? Apparently Peekaboo was not ready to play Tahm Kench. You have to be ready to play Tahm Kench in this meta, right? Yellowstar and Gorilla are both very good at Tahm Kench. So in this particular meta, I think KT misread the meta because you saw them. They were like first picking Darius and shit. Like they obviously felt that someday on Darius was very, very important. Let me just check. They banned Darius in 1 game, I believe, as well. Even though it was clear that Smeb was prioritizing. Yeah, they banned Darius in game 2, and Smeb just picked Fiora. Fuck it, you know? He's a very good Fiora player, but for all of you guys out there who don't really know Coup Tigers, if you think for an instant that Smeb can't play Riven, Smeb is one of the best Riven players I've ever seen. And so his champion pool goes very, very deep. Also, some statistics for you. Smeb right now is #1 out of all top laners in terms of damage per minute. So he is absolutely balling out of control at the moment in terms of top laners. So his statistics are absolutely incredible at the moment.
Just go through the whole year. Look at any meta for top lane, and he always masters the main champions of the meta. Even if it's totally different, it's Nar Maokai at one point in time, then it's like Rumble early in the year, then now he's changed to all the carry tops, the Fiora, Darius, all of them.
Sure, and not only that, but let's talk about some other statistics.
So I mean, one of the best examples of that, by the way, was when he had no, you know, when Malphite was just brought out in the playoffs only in LCK.
Well, it was him.
He was one of the guys who just brought it out and started playing and winning on it.
He was the first one, Thorin. He was the first one. He invented that pick. Okay, he did that. It was Coup Tigers that did that. So he probably has other top laners that we don't even know about right now. But let's just talk about Smeb, okay? First in damage per minute at Worlds. Second in CS differential at 10 minutes. And at 20 minutes, behind Marin, okay? So there's no shame there. And his average gold differential at 20 minutes. At 20 minutes into the game, he's #1 with 1,800 gold differential. That means, on average at 20 minutes, Smeb is 1,800 gold ahead of the other top laner. That's absolutely massive.
In terms of this series, though, that's the big problem I see for them. For me, there's 2 obvious advantages, one for each team, which goes like this. I think Coup, it's almost undeniable that Smeb has an advantage over Huni, and that will be a big problem that basically Fnatic have to find out how to solve. Meanwhile, For Fnatic, I give them they give their edge, I give them in mid lane, which is
Absolutely.
we have seen when Huni doesn't carry, yes, Febiven definitely steps in there, and he's another brilliant rookie player. I mean, I'm always skeptical about calling people rookie when they've kind of played years before these weren't in LCS, but whatever. Let's call that rookie in that sense. But obviously, one of the breakout performances, playing very, very well. And now that Huni's having breakdowns, you're getting a chance to actually see superstar quality from him. Before, when the whole team's winning and they're winning everywhere else on the map, yeah, obviously you can't be considered a superstar because you never relied upon to carry. That's what the superstar does. But now he is doing so, and I do think he can play very well against Kuro, and I think his champion pool will be wide enough to be able to do whatever he wants there. I don't think Kuro's as bad as people think he is. I mean, remember, the guy does survive against most of the good mid laners in Korea. It's like he gets battered every game, so it won't be as ridiculous in that sense, but I think Febiven can be a big plus for Fnatic in this series.
Kuro is also super good on Victor. He's one of the best Victor players in the world. So if you give him that pick, which you think he's 18-4 on now, he's going to do some damage to you. So Kuro does have specific picks that I think he's strong on. Otherwise, he's pretty mediocre, right? I think Febiven's the better mid laner overall. And when I come into this match, the other thing you have to consider is that Ku reverted. So they had a very strong early game in the group phase against a weak group. But against KT, they were falling behind, 5, 6K and doing that classic Ku comeback. Meanwhile, Fnatic has been very dominant in the early game so far. So we could see some very big early leads from Fnatic, and that could help them snowball out the game. But Ku's comeback potential is also huge. So it's such an interesting matchup overall. I'm very excited to see the games.
So here's the question I have for you, though, Monte. Just to theory craft what Fnatic does. Now, the problem is, we've already kind of criticised before. In past times, one of the reasons why it's weird that Huni picks these champions outside of his comfort is you'd think the formula before was to always get Huni onto those strong champions, give him a chance to carry, and he'll do it. That's also because he's never playing in the past against Smeb, Duke, someday. So the problem here comes like this, Monte. The part that I'm worried about for Fnatic is if you follow what I just said, really you shouldn't be worrying about Huni too much. You should be getting Febiven onto his champions. He's going to be the strength, but that's not been the Fnatic formula. So if they go the other way and they try to put Huni onto whatever he wants, I mean, at the moment he's playing fucking Riven and shit. So if he tries to go for those champions, that's where I see it being a big gamble that will not pay off in their favor. So which do you think they do? Do they go all out with Huni?
No, I think you go for Febiven and you try and just let Huni play a little bit more of a reserve style in as much as you can. I agree with you.
Like Huni's the big question mark, even aside from matchup, because he's the one who can play the stupid champion that can throw a whole game.
Yeah.
No one else is going to do that on Fnatic. Like, Rainova is going to play entirely in his comfort zone,
Here's the other thing. Huni tilts. We talked about this earlier in the show, but if he starts dying, Huni will start making increasingly risky plays to get back into the game instead of just playing passively and farming and trying to get back into the game in a safer style. He will just continue going ham over and over and over again, and it's high risk, kind of medium reward to do that. So we've already seen that this tournament when he did that. Now, the problem with the Ku Tigers is that in the group stage, their late game was not the same Ku Tigers late game that we had seen, yet they were doing well in the early game. So with Ku, they've kind of fell apart in terms of late game shot calling and team fighting against Flash Wolves in 2 games, which is very unusual for them. Whereas against KT, they had their normal weakness in the early game where they died a lot and didn't do much, fell behind, but then they had that characteristic team fighting and shot calling strength in the mid and late game that got them back in some of those instances.
And obviously that's also where you look at the trends that are going on, and actually I think the trends, I'm not going to use the joke that it's worrying, but it's a concerning trend if you're thinking of Fnatic, because again, one of the reasons why Reckless is playing Ashe and is playing Kennen is to be the CC, and he's setting it up that someone else is going to carry the damage. So that means Huni must carry in this series. It must be Huni and Febiven who do it. So it's very unlikely. And I mean, I guess they could revert the style, but they haven't shown that trend so far.
The same thing is true of Ku, right? Like,
sure, but I have no qualms about Smeb carrying the game.
Well, you should have also, by that token, Febiven should be better than Kuro, so it just depends on who carries harder, right? But
the difference is, Kuro can be beaten, but I don't think he's going to shit the bed like I've seen Huni shit the bed sometimes.
I would agree with that.
Like Kuro can just be beaten outright. He just wasn't good enough and the guy outplays him. Fair enough. But it's not like he can be better than the guy and have a collapse and that's why you lose. That's the difference. So basically, I summarise the reason why I'm edging Ku to win the series like this. Fnatic's super good at those one-off games, but it's not like they just do the same thing 3 games in a row usually and win. I realise everyone's going to be like, EDG, like, yeah, okay, that was a pretty different case, mate. So in general, that's the way it goes. Ku are awesome at series play. They're usually
And they're
very
also
good pick
awesome
ban.
at pick ban. Yeah.
Yep, the pick bans be phenomenal.
Whereas
And
Fnatic's pick ban has been a little shakier this time.
And the difference is, between the two advantages, I'll put my side on the Smeb advantage over the Febervin advantage. I think that will be more meaningful overall. I do think they're very evenly matched up teams in many senses, though. But I think that's the matchup that's going to win out. Let me ask you this then. We haven't talked about the EDG series, because that's the one that is making people so hard on Fnatic. Now, people will get so butthurt when I say this, but let's be real. People already criticised EDG for doing poorly in the group stage. Now, the reason I thought that they would do well in the quarters is I used the logic of, I thought they'll fit. First of all, they're playing SK Telecom. They'll figure something out here. Cora 1 coming in is an interesting twist. Maybe they bring him in because they think it can work. Obviously, it went to shit. But if you're going to hype Fnatic, you have to use the logic that EDG was really good in the series. They were really good. Both teams played really well, and Fnatic just happened to win. But your eyes tell you that didn't happen.
The dumb shit is that Fnatic fans will be like, well, we hyped SKT in the group stage because they did really well against EDG, but we expected better against EDG at that particular time, but also EDG got extra wrecked by SK Telecom in both games. They got fucking destroyed. And in the first game, EDG should have won that game. They had an opportunity when they won that top lane team fight around the inhibitor. If they had just teleported Jace and Fiora into the bottom lane and chased down Febervin on Victor and just delayed his recall, they had Twisted Fate and Thresh with Boots of Ability to do that, they would have won that game. They had a super minion wave at tier 2 in the bottom lane. They should have won 100%. I have looked at this play with a bunch of other analysts, with the Riot casters. We all unanimously agree that was a 100% win for EDG. 100%. And the thing is if you're going to run a teleport AD carry like Jace, and you are not capable of reading the TP play that wins you the game, you should not be playing that composition. So I don't know if EDG was under practiced or what the fuck happened, but they had that game in the bag.
The Jace pick, teleport Jace did look like a Hail Mary.
It was. But here's the saddest thing. It was a Hail Mary, Thorin. But then the Hail Mary, they throw the pass, and it's a fucking gorgeous pass. And it is right on target. It's the 80-yard pass to your receiver. And the receiver turns around, and then he fucking drops the ball. You know, that's the equivalent of what just happened in that game. And it was really sad to watch.
I mean, the reason I bring it up, the fact that people will get mad, is because people always do this. If a hyped Asian team does badly, what's funny is they themselves say they're bad, but they also claim that we're trying to have it both ways by saying, oh, it's just that they played badly. No,
Fnatic played well.
Fnatic played awesome, but the problem is you can't say EDG turned up to this, as in the EDG that everyone hyped from the spring and all. They did not turn up to this series. EDG was unusually terrible.
Yeah, and then they fucking played their draft in the last game with the Caston, and it was just awful. Like, sure, it's a good lane matchup into Azir, but it's not a good philosophy for how to play the game, right? Even that game. Okay, so remember there was a remake in that series too, and people were saying, "Oh, EDG was winning." I think EDG would have lost that game too, because as Jat pointed out on Twitter, EDG had 4 melee champions into Azir Gangplank. They were in such a shitty situation in terms of being outdrafted. They decided to take Mordekaiser over Gangplank. Gangplank counters Mordekaiser in teamfights. You should never take that. You should always first pick Gangplank.
So what did you actually think? Because we didn't talk too much about it yet, but the Ku versus KT series. I know you were picking KT to win it.
I was really disappointed by KT's drafts in this series, and I think they really dropped the ball there. I don't understand what the teleport LeBlanc was about at all. I think that KT, later in the series, having to ban both Kennen and Tahm Kench, why can't you play these champions? You know they're strong champions at Worlds. You should be able to draft around these champions. So people ask, like, okay, well, why? They were criticizing KT. Why are you banning Fiora? Well, they're banning Veigar, Kennen, and Tahm Kench, and I think this is just a misread from KT on the meta, because realistically, given the success of all 3 of these champions at Worlds, you should be able to play these champions coming into quarters, 100%. And guess what? Ku could. They had a better read on the meta. They won the game.
The thing is, though, you'll never see a more satisfying moment than that Victor gravity field on the ultimate from
That was
Darius.
so amazing, right?
That was beautiful, right? If you've ever played for Sir Darius, that was like a fucking orgasm worthy, wasn't it? Like the way he just got denied totally and then wrecked.
It's like
Also, that skin, it had to be that skin as well. It wouldn't be as good with the normal
Master.
skin. Yeah.
welcome to the jet.
And he just got wrecked. It's brilliant. That was one of those rare, just comedic, entertaining moments in the game.
It was so good, right? I loved that. I was laughing so hard.
If you look back now, Monte, should they at some point in the series have just started banning the Fiora? I mean, I realise they couldn't really have picked it because it's not really in somebody's wheelhouse. It would have had to be a ban, probably.
Okay, if it had to be a ban, like I said, the main problem is, okay, sure, you can say they should have banned the Fiora, but I think the bigger problem is what they were actually banning, because I assume they couldn't play it. Again, Vhagar, Kennen, Tahm Kench. These are champions after the group stage that KT should have identified and should have practiced so that they could play them. If you have to ban the Fiora, okay, you have to ban the Fiora. Fiora is very strong too, but the fact that they already had 3 meta picks that they couldn't play and that they felt they had to ban just tells me that KT didn't have any clue what they should have been playing or what they should have been drafting in quarters.
Especially in Peekaboo's case, it does seem strange that he couldn't play any of that.
No. Oh, by the way, here's another weird thing about Peekaboo. Peekaboo in group stage, so Gorilla played 6 different supports in 6 games in groups. Peekaboo played 5 different supports, including Shen, which he had never played professionally before, in the group stage. Why the fuck can't he play Tahm Kench?
You would
That's
even think that would be
weird,
a great champion if you could get it as well. Pop the Fiora in there. There we go.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yep, exactly. But KT banned Tahm Kench in 3 out of the 4 games.
Do you think Tahm Kench will play a role in Fnatic Coup?
You know what's even weirder is that the one game KT didn't ban Tahm Kench in, Gorilla picked it, and KT won. What the fuck? Why are you betting Tahm Kench?
Do you think Tahm Kench will be played in this series?
Yes, he's really good. Or he'll be banned. A very strong champion.
Will we see Maud in this series? Is that just permaban for everyone now?
I think teams will experiment with leaving Ward up in a best of 5 because you have wiggle room, so you kind of want to see. So one of the weird things that happens in metas like this in League of Legends is that, so Gangplank and Mordekaiser have been banned so much, and they've been banned all the time in scrims too. And we saw EDG, when they tried to play Mordekaiser, they were really fucking bad at playing Mordekaiser. The game that was stopped due to the bug. Deft was really bad at Mord. So you get into this weird situation where no one has actually practiced these champions because they're banned in all scrims, banned in all professional games. So you don't actually know who is legitimately good at these champions. So we could see teams like leaving it up because they may be bad. I mean, Deft was really bad at Mordekaiser.
What do you think about people saying that since Gragas has been disabled, it's going to make the advantage, isn't it the red side advantage or something, even worse?
Don't think it's true. I think it just changes the jungle pool. One thing that we also can talk about in the Coup Fnatic matchup, like I said earlier, Hojin has not played Gragas at all at Worlds. Not once. So, and again, Hojin has all these weird jungle picks, whereas Reignover, I feel, is more limited in the fact that he doesn't play Lee Sin, and he is somewhat dependent on the Gragas. People will say, okay, well, Olaf isn't a great jungler right now. And if you start picking junglers that are suboptimal, Hojin has a bunch of other weird picks that he can pull out, like Trundle. So, and his team knows how to play around the Trundle. So I think that will affect the Coup Fnatic matchup. I think it hurts Fnatic more than it hurts Coup.
So since we won't be able to do an episode because I'm at the CSGO major next week before the final, luckily we know who you think's going to win the final. So here's what we'll do, Monte. Just shadow box. If SKT was to play Fnatic, if SKT was to play Coup, what are your preliminary thoughts on how it would go?
I think that if SKT is to play Fnatic, they will be more aggressive in the early game, and SK Telecom will just snowball out of the early game relatively easily. But it should be like a lot of kills pre 20 minutes. So I think it'll be an exciting series, even though SK Telecom should have an edge. I think the most likely result in either case is a 3-0 against Fnatic or against Coup. Maybe it goes to 3-1, but probably 3-0. I think against Coup, like the early game, Coup will fall back, lose all their additional turrets very easily, and then have to fall back on their two towers. They will be able to turtle for a while, but then they'll eventually just get crushed by SKT, either around Baron or around Dragon.
I think it would be a fitting final if Smeb plays Marin in the final. So he's gone through someday, he's gotten past Huni, and now he plays the final boss, the guy who fucked with him in that final at LCK Spring. He remembers that. He held that. It's like there's a famous saying, Monte, when the French, after the Franco-Prussian War, had to cede the territories of like Alsace and Lorraine, I think it was, back to the Germans. They had this quote that this famous politician said, where he said, like, never... think of it always, but never speak of it. That's what I hope Smeb has done. Okay, it's always been there in his mind. He never says anything, so no one knows. But that's all that burns within him every day, is to wait for this chance to just destroy Marin and be like, who is the best top player now? Who is the best? Okay, so you literally have both as a 3-0. Okay, well that was easily done then. Well, easy goes.
What do you think, Chief?
I do think if Coup get there, they could win a game. I think it's just unusual you have 3-0s, I've noticed, especially in domestic matchups, unless someone like totally outpicks the other team, like we kind of saw in the LCK final.
We've only had 3-0s in the finals this year.
Yeah,
spring and summer, man.
Yeah, but the Smeb's not going to be playing Aurelia, mate. I'm not worried about that. So then there's the fact that they're not going to get super out drafted. I think actually the drafting of Coup's improved a lot over the summer, over the playoffs, over Worlds now. They've gotten pretty good in that, so they should be decent at that. I don't think they can win. I don't think either of these teams can win. I think it's pretty obvious that SK Telecom should win. I mean, they've already got... They're literally the only team that can make the finals without showing all the fucking weapons. I mean, how OP do you want to be at that point in time? Without even showing everything. Like, you know, in other games, people won't know this in League of Legends. Okay, there was a famous meme, which isn't even supposed to be a joke. It just became a real meme. It was an idea that just circulated, where what people used to do many years ago, 10 years plus ago, in Counter-Strike, when their favorite team, usually a North American team, would fail at a small LAN or in a league play match, they would say, they're saving their strats for the LAN. And the idea was that they'd only lost because they were just free-for-alling, you know, and they were saving the real secret strategy that was going to win the whole game for the big tournament. Now, obviously, by the way, I hope I don't need to explain this, in 99.999% of cases, they weren't. They were just trying their hardest like everyone would, because you do your best to win the games in front of you, and they just were losing. Now, what's mad is SK Telecom might be the first team in history where that could actually be real. I guess in theory EDG also did it a little bit at MSI, but this could actually be real in terms of the overall style. I mean, like, as people have noted, Faker hasn't even had to be the hard carry of the team, and yet he is the best player ever. And he's just chilling, waiting for his time to be the most ridiculous insurance policy ever and just own the whole game anyway. So how are they going to lose?
Yeah, it's pretty funny in that way.
So anyway, that's the end of the episode. Thanks to All for Draft. See you all after Worlds.